Yo, what's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson, episode 38. Pressure makes diamonds. I'm joined once again by a recurring guest over these last 2 weeks, Clarence Taylor III, aka Trey. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. It's Wednesday, so it's hump day. Um, but my brother is actually in town, so we hung out last night, so that's cool.
That's good, man. Yeah, shout out to Isaiah. I don't know. He probably didn't want a public shout out, but shout out to
Well, he got one, so
Isaiah. Yeah, man. Trey comes from. We've talked about this on the podcast before, right? For those of you that don't know, Trey comes from a family of nine, seven
yep.
siblings. Not
Mom,
just
dad, and
yeah,
7 kids.
yeah,
I'm the
yeah,
oldest.
yeah. So he's the oldest of seven. So he has enough for you sports fans that obviously all of you, if you're watching this, you either like sports or you're sports adjacent. So he had enough. He had enough. To play 3-on-3 and have one substitute. So one rotating alternate. So in basketball. Um, so so we hope Morgan can join us. Obviously, those of you that have been watching these last few weeks, Morgan is in deep with the Olympics. Obviously, for her, Sunday can't come soon enough. Sunday night. So yeah, so definitely, she's doing well. She might, but she's not tired and nothing fugazi happens like last time. She might join us for like a big Olympics thing. Hopefully, we'll see though. But you're rocking out with Trey and me. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe and follow us, obviously. But before we get there, don't forget, Trey did a good pub PSA a couple of weeks ago. Don't forget to share this, man. Friends don't let friends miss out on a good podcast, and family don't let family miss out on a great podcast. I think we do a good job. I've met some of y'all in person who watch the show. Y'all love it. So share it. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family members. Share it with your colleagues. You never know what can happen. You might end up on here. So definitely like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter/X, the former Bird app, as some of y'all call it. Morgan is at M_India_Miller. I am at Kylan W. Watson, and Trey is the little weirdo on here on Instagram at Mr. Taylor, 3 eyes. So definitely check that out. Check that out. All right. So if nothing else, by the way, shouts out to all the August babies. I don't think there's any amongst Morgan, Trey, and I. I think I'm the only summer baby besides Morgan. So we just want to shout out all the August babies. So moving right along in breaking news, not really breaking, but as of a couple hours ago, according to ESPN, Jim Harbaugh is suspended for a year by the NCAA for violations of the COVID recruitment, and also has received a 4-year show cause punishment as well. Um, so before we get there, let me just explain this. So essentially, y'all, this 4-year show cause includes that 1-year suspension, and then the other 3 years, he has to basically ask permission, essentially, to come back into college football. So basically, he's banned for the next 4 years from any college football program, any involvement here, and that's before we get to the whole, Jim Harbaugh was on his bill. He would say, plausible deniability. I don't want to throw no calls on him that he had nothing to do with this. But this is before the whole Connor Stallions sign stealing Bill Belichick thing. So, we don't know what's going on with that. We kind of do if you read between the tea leaves between this and what's coming with that. So, that is what it is. But I'm going to let Trey go. Trey, what's your reaction to this?
Yeah. So here's is a few things here. So, um, it it's an interesting timing because we're getting right into we're heading right into NFL preseason, and Jim Harbaugh is no longer even in the NCAA anyway. He's the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, and we'll get into talking a little bit about their quarterback actually a little bit later. But so that's number one, right? So Jim Harbaugh is not involved with the NCAA anyway. So the question I think in a lot of
Well, in
people's minds
fairness, he
is
was up until they won the championship in what
right, right,
late
right. So
January. So
until they won the championship late January. But I mean, currently he is no longer he is no longer coaching in the NCAA. So in my head, the question I'm asking is, does this actually even matter? Right? Does this actually impact him or not? And the answer to that question has to do with how good the Chargers can be over the next 4 years, how good he can make the Chargers over the next 4 years. So that's kind of the first two things. The other thing is, I was reading through some of the specifics of the allegations, and some of his responses over the course of his time at Michigan across the pandemic. Some of it was like, for example, one of the allegations was, or violations rather now, because he's been technically indicted, I guess you would say, is that like there were like in-person meetings during COVID when things were not supposed to be in person with prospective athletes and their in particular one meeting with like a father or multiple fathers, giving athletes access to a Michigan athletic facility when he wasn't supposed to be doing that because the facilities were shut down due to COVID or had limited access because of COVID. So there's that. And here's my thing, right? So whether these, for me, whether these, whether actually any of this actually happened or not, in my mind, it's indicative of both of the things that occurred across his time with Michigan, these allegations, and then, as you mentioned, the whole sign stealing thing. And so it's a situation where you look at it and you say, okay, and we'll get to this later as well with Jim. Is this the reason that he left the NCAA, right? And decided to go, and it was like, all right. Or was it just kind of weird timing that he won the chip, but knew he wanted to go move on to the NFL? Or was he trying to kind of avoid some things, so that's the kind of my brief reactions there. And we'll talk about a few other things in a little bit.
Yeah, so I get to go. Like, this is the reason why I think that people should stay away from former NFL coaches, because what you can do in the NFL, obviously you can't steal signs, and we don't know the whole thing. Obviously, Bill Belichick showed us that you can't steal signs and everything. And, obviously, but this is why you can't let NFL coaches or dictatorial NFL coaches like the Harbaughs become college coaches, because in college sports, we talk about this all the time. In college and high school, the coaches just have too much power over these kids. They really do. And especially in college, you got a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds. They're basically grown men, and the kind of dictatorial power that they have at some of these schools that we know and don't know about. Obviously, some of this stuff is, you hear about it all the time, about how they make these kids sit up front, how they do some, obviously this is all, some of this is true. Like, if enough athletes, whether they're former high school or college, they'll tell you that, I got to be on time. I got to sit up front of the class. And if you've been in college, you probably seen, like, you might have been in a class with a football player, a basketball player, and you do see their assistant coaches coming in, or whoever. I call them their babysitters, but the low-level assistant coach or whoever that comes in there and, checks in, essentially is like a cop checking in and making sure they up front, that they paying attention. They're
it's
not
like a probation officer.
Yeah, essentially. They're not sleeping in class, blah, 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 right? So, like, some of this stuff we all know, right? And we know, and I'm not accusing Jim Harbaugh of this. Some of us have heard, and some of us have friends that are former athletes that will tell you that, hey, like, I kind of had a coach do wink, wink deal, and I I wasn't supposed to play in the game, but my coach, sweetened the pot with the professor, and I got like a C instead of the D or the F I was supposed to have. Like, you have this stuff. Obviously, I'm here to tell you that low level stuff, and no offense to the college and high school people, but low level in comparison to professional leagues, there's a lot of shady stuff that go on with this stuff. I mean, you had in the 80s, before either Trey and I were born, you had Miami and Michael Irvin and what was going on with the cocaine stuff, and the Miami players having cars, the U in the 80s, Snoop Dogg's famous line, and all I do is win. That's what that's referencing, all the cocaine and all the weird stuff that was going on down there in the 80s and what they did to make sure that they had really good players in Miami. I shouldn't to not offend people because I know there's some U Miami alums that watch this. Technically, it's U Miami, but it's Coral Gables, which is a suburb of Miami. I know there's a lot of people in Miami that treat it like the suburban schools in Philly that claim the city, and you're not in it. So, like, that
Lower Marion, cough, Lower Marion.
And so, you have all that. But getting back to Jim Harbaugh, right? Like, this is a prime example of, a coach trying to get over. Obviously, you try and you have all these advantages as a college coach. And this is what happens when you're at a Michigan, a Penn State, or Oregon, and all this other stuff. Like, you got carte blanche, right? It ain't cheating if you don't get caught, right? So obviously he got caught, and this crazy. And I think this is, obviously I think this is a precursor to what's going to happen with the sign stealing thing, because this, to me, of the two things that they're claiming that he did, and obviously it's more than two things, but I'm combining all these things together, of the two cases that they put on him, like, this is pretty innocuous. So I think, like, this was just like, because some of the smaller schools are probably complaining, this is the equivalent of, getting spanked on the hand as a child or whatever. This is a slap on the wrist. Like, this is just, oh, he's gone. We can't really do anything. We don't want to take Michigan's wins away. Michigan finally won a championship for the first time in 40 years in January. We don't want to take that away. So we'll just slap on the wrist, COVID and stuff. So I just think this was that slap on the wrist. I'm sure there were plenty of coaches doing this. He's just the one that got caught. And, I think, my reaction to this is it's a slap on the wrist. It's something that, like Trey said, oh my goodness, he's suspended from a year of coaching when he's spending like a year in the NFL. And if it goes poorly for him, if nothing else, he can go to Baltimore with his brother. So it's not totally terrible for him, but it is a slap on the wrist. It's one of those, like, you're out the door, but you can't come back things. And, like, if you do, you have to ask permission. So it's a pride thing there too, unless he goes like a low level program, but even it's one of them things that to sum this up, it's a slap on the wrist. And he's not the only one that probably was laughing and meeting with recruits when they weren't supposed to in 2020 and 2021. So moving on to what Trey alluded to earlier, does this punishment explain why he left college football? Yeah, I think it does. Plus, I think also, like, I think what he was looking at is the bigger thing. I think, I don't know this, I don't have any sources in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, but I kind of think that, because I think the Michigan AD and the chancellor, the president of the University of Michigan, they sat him down and they were like, okay, we won the championship. They knew about one of these investigations, and they kind of knew that the Counter Stallions thing would probably end up in an investigation. They're probably like, hey, all right, you did what you wanted to do. You came back. You won a title. They probably basically told him, even though Michigan made a show of it, I think it's kind of like it's kind of like that things in politics where quid pro quo. I think all the power brokers in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan sat him down, said, you won the championship. Go on, take the interviews. He was taking the interviews anyway during the playoffs, so they kind of knew it already. They were probably like, go ahead, whatever place you go to, go ahead and leave. We'll make a show of it, wink, wink, but we know you're gone, because I think it would be worse for Michigan if he was still there right now. It's kind of like what happened in Kansas with Bill Self when they won a championship, and instead of retiring, he stayed to try and win another one. And then they had to vacate wins. They had to suspend players. They lost scholarships. So I think what Michigan did to limit the damage control, those of you non-political people and you never worked in a thing with that, like, they were like, go ahead and leave. We'll make a show out of it. We'll give you your money, but go ahead, take the NFL job. We know you want to go anyway, and it'll look better because you're not there. We'll promote your second. Again, I have no sources, but his main assistant took the job for, but everybody and their mom. Was he going to New England or else?
I think he's breaking up.
Can you hear me?
You're still chopping up. But I think I can hear you better than like. What I would do is try turning off your video for a sec, and then that should at least briefly fix any issues. Because technical difficulties. Yeah, you're still, on my end at least, you're still chopping up. I think I can hear you good now, though.
All right, so where did I cut off at?
I think you mostly said what you were saying, and I think you. Darn, I couldn't catch where exactly you were, and because you kind of like, it was like you were saying something and you started getting choppy, and then I couldn't hear anything.
So, to finish it off, so they gave job, they made a show. I think.
Breaking up again.
Out. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
They went out. LA, and again, no with Connor Stallion that investigation, but I think the worst of it is over for Michigan. They might lose a scholarship, vacate some wins, but this does explain why he left. And like I think, like I said, that again, no source.
Did I lose you again? I think I might have lost him. Okay, I hear you. I hear you again. It just keeps going in and out.
So let me. Leave and come back. I'll be.
In the meantime, I'll start talking about my thoughts. All right, so technology, right? Technology is weird sometimes. In the meantime, Colin's I think he's gonna leave, and he'll hop back in. Hopefully that shouldn't kick me out, and it didn't. Okay, cool. So does this punishment explain why he left college football? I think yes and no. The reason I say yes and no is because I think he was going to leave anyway. And I think I think both the COVID accusations and the potential for the situation with sign stealing and Connor Stallions and his or his actual involvement in that meant that, like Kylan said, he probably sat down with the chancellor, the president, and the athletic director, and they were probably like, well, we know you want to leave anyway, and we know you're going to leave anyway regardless, but we know these investigations are coming up, and Jim is probably like, well, yeah, I'm going to be leaving anyway, So I think that these potential investigations at the time were a kick in the butt for him, and actually at the time they probably were already investigations were probably already in place or were already in motion. And so it was kind of a kick in the butt. So that's why I say, yeah, was it? Does it explain why he left college football? I guess in some sense, but I also think he was already going to leave regardless, and the violations were was good. RC talking Iowa Hawkeyes and more. Okay, salute to you, man. In the comments. So yeah, but the other thing is with him leaving college football is I do agree with you, Kylan, that it is in some sense kind of a slap on the wrist. Like this, at least these first set of violations with the COVID recruitment violations, because and I don't want to. That does not mean that I take COVID lightly, right? Don't take that to mean that Kylan or I take COVID lightly. I had family members, unfortunately, that passed from COVID. COVID was a very serious issue, you know, but in comparison to the sign stealing in the context of sports, the sign stealing is a much bigger issue because it potentially involves or it would be cheating.
Right.
Whereas the COVID recruitment is more of a more macro level conversation about okay, why was he trying to have in-person conversations with people knowing there was a global pandemic, right? So I'm more of the mind that he was already going to leave, and the school was kind of like, hey man, these investigations are on the way. We were probably gonna fire you if you weren't already going to leave anyway, but since you're already going to leave, go ahead and do your thing. These investigations are going to happen, and you're probably going to get suspended or whatever, blah blah blah. Thank you for your time here. Thank you for winning us a championship, but goodbye.
Yeah, you got me. All right, good. So again, we don't know where I cut off at, but yeah, I echo all of that that Trey said, and like I said, they're not giving the championship back. They're probably just going to lose some scholarships, probably get some wins vacated. Y'all know how the NCAA likes to do, especially if you repping that orange S that I got on my shirt right here. That's Syracuse. You know all about the whole Jim Boeheim had to give his wins back, and he went from like being the all-time winningest coach to not having it. So y'all know what the NCAA do. They come back, they say, "Oh, we're gonna give the wins back, and you might lose a scholarship." And at this point, with the way they're going with these cases, losing a scholarship might be the worst punishment you have now, since everybody got to have the same amount of scholarships for every program now. So since all these schools only have but so many thousands of scholarships now, that's probably going to be the worst punishment you get. But yeah, like Trey said, and like I said, no sources for this. I don't want any Michigan fans hearing me say that before I got cut off by some technological difficulties and act like I got sources. I do not. I do know a lot of people. I got a couple of friends in Saginaw and Ann Arbor, Michigan, but I have no sourcing. It's not like any big person anonymously reached out to me associated with the University of Michigan football program and told me that. This is just my Philly perspective and my oh, he left. They made a show out of it. With the contract, talking about they were going to bid against the NFL teams. They promoted his second. Some of this stuff with sports, y'all, whether you're a journalist or not, you just got to read sports and in life. You just got to read between the lines to really see the picture sometimes. So yeah, I think that's what happened. They told him leave. They were probably, I disagree with Trey on one thing. They're probably never going to fire him. They would have suspended him. They would have done what most of these schools do to their big time players. Oh, you're suspended for a half. We'll see you. We'll see you after halftime. They would have done that to him. It would have been something like that. Oh, you missed the big 5 games, but they make sure that he comes back just in case to be back to beat Ohio State and Penn State. That's probably what would have happened there. But yeah, so I think this does explain why he went to the Chargers of all places. So moving on. So this is what I added. Will Michigan be punished for this and the sign stealing / Counter Stallions investigations as well? Trey?
I'm going to be fairly brief with this. So, yes, I believe so, and there's an if. If for the COVID violations, so he's already been suspended for the COVID violations. So, from the NCAA's perspective, they believe that he made some COVID violations. If they are also able to discover and find out that Michigan was complicit in these COVID violations, then absolutely. 2, sign stealing. If they are able to determine that Connor Stallions and perhaps Jim Harbaugh as well, or any other coaches on the Michigan football team were involved in efforts to steal signs from other teams, yes, those coaches and those staff members or whatever will be punished. Now, will the University of Michigan as a whole be punished for either of these things? I don't know. That's a larger question that I think requires at least with the sign stealing. I think more particularly, because with the COVID violations, was Michigan as a whole university involved? No, right? Did the athletic director maybe look the other way? Perhaps. And if they discover that, then I think the football team itself, like Michigan football, will be punished for sure. And the same thing with the sign stealing. If it was a situation where Connor Stallions was doing his own thing and then Jim found out about it and he kind of, turned the other way or acted like he didn't know what was going on, obviously Connor Stallions will receive some sort of suspension or whatever, or ban. I'm sure Jim will probably receive some sort of repercussions. And I believe that if it's determined that it was a lack of leadership, like, you're talking about like from the athletic director type of situation, knew about it or whatever, then yes, I could see a scenario where you see Michigan football. I don't think that you'll see any like larger, and unless with the sign stealing, we discover it was like wide scale, like they were every single game they were stealing signs, and it was clear that by stealing those signs, it directly impacted win or loss. I don't see a scenario where the NCAA like goes and does, a Fab Five type of situation, or a Reggie Bush type of situation. But it won't be a slap on the wrist either. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm going to say that I think that, at this point, we already know that somebody was buying him tickets, making sure that he had the seats. So in this case, following the money is what they need to do. And we know from the reporting on this thing that somebody was paying for him to get these seats, go to these games in northern Michigan, and all these other places where he shouldn't have been. We know he had tickets for their matchups in Ohio State and at Penn State and all these other places. Somebody was buying them tickets. So a lowly graduate assistant doesn't have the cachet to be able to do that. So somebody within that program did that. And obviously, I think that we're about to witness the first ban for life, because I think that if nothing else, Connor Stallions will be banned from ever being a part of any college or university that's under the NCAA umbrella. And so for those of you that don't know, that's all of them. So even your community colleges are under the NCAA umbrella. So that's basically he won't be able, only place he'll be able to go is high school. that you're about to witness the first universal ban. Like what happened to Jonte Porter is about to happen to Connor Stallions, because they've already got the tickets. Look, this is basic investigation stuff. This, for Trey, this is right in his wheelhouse. Y'all can pay him. I mean, he was doing this for free for for what's his name in Utah. So like somebody like him would be like, oh, all I got to do is follow the money, his Instagram and stuff like that. Trust and believe somebody our age has probably already figured out where Connor Stalions was, because he probably was stupid enough to put it on social media. So where he was, when he was, they're just trying to figure out who was paying for all of this. That's all that's left. And if they can, so he's going to be banned. And, if they can pin it on Harbaugh, he'll be banned too. But that's probably going to be harder. But it won't be hard for them to figure out, all right, he's a grad assistant. So either a booster, a coach, or, a Michigan athletics department member was helping you out here. We just got to figure out who it was and stuff like that. So if they can figure that out, Connor Stalions is going to be banned for life from any college ever, any sports program in college. That's what I think. As far as, the Harbaugh part of this, that's probably going to be harder to pin down just because, with the NCAA, they do surface level investigations. So unless there's an email, a text, or something that says, "See Stalions, hey, Jim, I need $500 via Cash App for these tickets." Like, unless they can put a direct text, I don't think a coach is going to be involved unless there's some direct email. And, hey, man, if they were smart, they wouldn't be able to be killed, right? So there might be a paper trail somewhere, or in this case, an electronic paper trail. But Connor Stalions, I think, is going to be banned for life. As far as Michigan, what does this mean for the Michigan football program? Like I say, I think they're going to have their wins vacated. They're not going to make them give the championship back. But if the sign stealing was found to have severely affected games, then I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, okay, Michigan, you don't get this championship. It goes to Washington. Now, will they do an Olympic style thing? I don't think so. But again, there's stuff I don't know here, like that the NCAA may know. Like maybe they have emails of big level athletics program members at the University of Michigan, like putting money on his books and stuff to be able to pay for these tickets, paying for the equipment. Maybe they have video of him taking video equipment from the film school or wherever they get the cameras from at the University of Michigan's athletic department. Maybe they have that. I don't know. There's some stuff I don't know. But I think as far as Michigan football program, if you're a Michigan football fan, you're probably going to they're going to vacate some wins. And if it's found to be egregious enough, you will probably have to give that championship back. But I don't expect the championship to be given back. I think this has a stain on Michigan's football program a little bit, as much of a stain as the Patriots have. If you're a Michigan football fan, you're going to get the jokes, ha, 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 Connor Stalions. Also, it's just going to be a stain a little bit, right? Well, people are going to ask, it's kind of like with the Houston Astros, right? Are you really signed? How did you know that they were going to do this? Was that film study, or do you have another Connor Stalions looking at in these practices, looking at it, right? It kind of stained Bill Belichick's legacy. It'll stain Jim Harbaugh's legacy. As far as Michigan football, it'll be a stain a little bit, but the stains are going to be on Jim Harbaugh and whoever else is found to. If Jim Harbaugh is going to take a hit, the COVID thing, like I said, slap on the wrist. But if he's found to have had direct knowledge of this, like a Bill Belichick situation, oh yeah, he's gonna be right there, banned for life. But I doubt that they'll be able to pin that on him. Again, I don't have any sourcing on this, but unless they have a direct email, a text, or something, or somebody being able to be like, oh yeah, I saw Connor going out of Jim Harbaugh's office, and they had a conversation there, buddy. Unless somebody got that, I doubt that this is going to end up in Michigan having to give their title back. But it is a stain there. Trey?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of answered this question and with the last question as well. I think I mostly agree with you. And with some of the information you just talked about with Connor Stalions, I think it makes sense that he'll get some sort of very serious ban. Will it be for life? I don't know. I guess it depends on the seriousness of their findings. But like I said, with Michigan, I don't know that they'll take away wins and that's why I said with what I said before, it's like these are all ifs, right? Like if there are very concrete findings about what was actually going on with Connor Stalions, him going to these games, what kind of recording was going on, was it, and all, and pictures taken, that type of situation, and who at Michigan football was involved. And if it's just a Connor Stallions thing, or if it's like Connor Stallions and there's some other former staffers that were involved, like Denard Robinson and some other staffers that may have been involved in this, and also some staffers who had some other completely separate cases as well. But if it's determined that like Jim and Connor were both involved in this, and maybe like, you know, an upper tier like assistant coach or like a defensive coordinator, that type of situation was involved in this, then absolutely, like, wins will be taken away, maybe even the championship. I don't know. And some other, you know, serious, some other serious repercussions as far as scholarships being taken away and other things like that.
Think death penalty? Because the last time something like this happened, they gave that program the death penalty.
I know this is not a situation that I think. So the NCAA is both it's entertainment, right? It's a sport that people, so you know, so in some sense it's part of a, you know, it oversees sports at educational organizations, but the NCAA is also a business. So I think it would be foolish of the NCAA to, like, you know, essentially do away with the Michigan football program because they've got too much history, too large of a program. And then you're also like all the players who have either committed there or were going to commit there, you know, now they're like scrambling because they declined other offers. And so no. What it means for Michigan's program is and I'm mostly talking about the sign stealing, is there will be some very, very serious allegation or punishment handed down. Some of which I agree with what Kylan said.
Yeah, man. So again, we don't know anything. We're just speculating. But if you are a source of information at University of Michigan, and you feel like you want to talk to somebody because it's just stressing you out what you know, at Kylan W. Watson on Twitter, and you can definitely DM me, and we'll do some talking if you got some things you want to get off your chest. But I mean, I don't know if anybody will take me up on that. So, you know, I don't know if there's any power brokers that you can't hear. Oh, okay. I don't know if there's any power brokers that listen to this podcast. I know this podcast is very entertaining. I don't know if there's any power brokers that wanna talk to me. But again, I just want to, because I don't
whistleblowers.
I don't know. I don't want any people who listen to this, because I do have some friends that are University of Michigan fans. I am not personally rooting for y'all to get the death penalty. You know, I am from Pennsylvania. I am a Penn State and a Syracuse fan, but I have no real issue with Michigan because I didn't go to Penn State. I would have, but there were some things that happened there. I did get accepted. That's a whole story for another day. Trey knows what happened with that.
Bad vibes.
You know, love Penn State and everything. But you know, I don't personally root against Michigan. It's not like I have some like hidden animosity towards Michigan, other than the fact that, you know, the best football program in Pennsylvania is Penn State, and I root for them, but I didn't go there, so I have no personal animosity for Michigan. So I just want to clear the air. I don't think Trey does either. I think he actually likes Michigan football, though he's a Georgia football fan now because he has to be, because he lives there. But yeah, moving right along, ESPN just had a real banner day today. Tim McManus is reporting that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni did not have a good relationship last year, and that is why the offense looked the way it did. So, Trey, what's your reaction to this? Or did you started, right? Or is this my turn to start?
I don't remember. Honestly,
okay, go ahead. You start.
So
we're getting old, y'all.
for the Philadelphians that are the Philadelphia Eagles fans in general that are locked in to what goes on behind the scenes, behind, you know, in the locker room, in the front office with the Philadelphia Eagles as an organization, no dip, right? We knew this because Jalen, and I'm blanking on his name, but the quarterback coach who has worked with Jalen since like all the way going back to high school.
Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson. We know that he has a great relationship with Jalen Hurts, and maybe there was even some straining of the relationship between them two. But yeah, obviously no dip. Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni had some relationship issues last year, and a lot of that contributed. It clearly contributed to one of, if not, and Kylan will say this is the worst. That was the worst collapse in Philly sports history. So, great reporting by Tim McManus. But I mean, if you were paying attention to the Eagles last year, yeah, no dip. They had, and you can't have. It is very, very difficult to have a successful football team that's going to go anywhere in the playoffs, and continue to play at the level the Eagles were playing up until week 12 or 13 last year, and have a poor relationship between your head coach and your starting quarterback. It's just not. It's not really a thing that can happen, right? They have to be in sync. Your OC, your head coach, your quarterback coach, and your QB have to be in sync. Like, it's got to be like this for them. So yes, and that obviously explains the struggles last year. My question would be, how much did Brian Johnson play in maybe potentially the souring or the temporary? Because I think it was more temporary. I think it was an in the moment thing. For those who have ever played sports, sometimes things happen during practice, or, for me, I played in high school. So a lot of my teammates, we had some homeschool teammates, and you had teammates that you went to school with. Sometimes your friends, and something happens during the school day, and it bleeds into practice. Right. So what I'm wondering is, locker room wise, front office wise, behind the scenes wise, how much did Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts' relationship play into this kind of souring, poor relationship between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni last season, and how that impacted the shifting around of who had what role, as far as calling plays and being OC and all that type of stuff, and then how the other thing is what that did to Jalen mentally. Because think about this, right? If I have a guy who I basically, I basically got my team to give this guy a job, basically, because I'm such good friends with him, and I have such a good relationship with him. I've worked with him for so long, and now this guy is potentially causing relationship issues with the head coach who was there before this guy. So yeah, I mean, I could talk till I was blue in the face about this. But again, like I said, you can put it on the headline. No dip. Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts did not have a good relationship last season.
That's our Gen Z slang about thing for the day, man. But yeah, like, it's one of them things, right? If y'all read the article, I believe it's free. I know I got it, and I don't pay for no no ESPN paywall, so I read the whole thing. Very, very good job, as Trey said, by Tim McManus. There were some things there that was kind of deep. Again, we just did a dictatorial coach from the Andy Reid tree. We got another one, Nick Sirianni. And again, like I've said this before on this podcast many a times with no sourcing, just because like I watch the games. Trey knows I'm very detailed, but he is from that Doug Peterson tree of I do everything, I call the plays, I coach, I do it all on the offensive side. The defensive side I have nothing to do with. But he's from that Andy Reid dictatorial style. So this makes sense, right? He has Brian Johnson. And if you read the thing, they talk about that, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni are both strong personalities, even though I don't personally believe in that in astrological stuff. Shouts out to Jalen Hurts. It's his birthday today. My fellow Leo brother. Another type A personality, just like me. Like, we bump heads. We're stubborn. And that's what Jalen Hurts comes from, that Alabama style where he has that, people that can match his level of competitiveness. He's more of an introvert as well. He takes criticism. He's a father of a coach. He's a father of a coach. He has no kids. Son of a coach. So he's used to that. And, you know, a lot of people wanted him to change his personality. Another superstar, just like the one that plays basketball here, that people want to not be introverted and be out here yelling at people when that's not their personality. Where have I heard that one before? And you know, I am of the mindset that, you know, that's what happened. They said in the reporting, he said that they need a third party. And like, you know, it got to a point, like Trey just alluded to, unintentionally or maybe intentionally, where none of the players knew who was calling the plays because Brian Johnson would call a play. Nick Sirianni would be like, overruled, and do something else. So it would confuse the players. That's why the offense started going, like Trey said, about week 12, week 13, went from 40 to 60 points to 30. 20, 10, 9 in the playoffs. Like, that's what was going on. Like, I said this a few months ago. Like, I be knowing stuff just based on observation, right? I told y'all, you were on this, like, I was in our group chats, Crossover Sports Podcast. I was saying this, and people are like, well, how do you know this? I'm like, just look at the game, y'all. Like, you can kind of see that, like, Brian Johnson is calling plays. He's sitting there with Jalen Hurts, and Nick Sirianni is rolling his eyes, essentially looking like, I'm going to call whatever I'm going to call. He's going to do what I say. I don't care that you know him. That's how he was looking. Like, and like, it got to a point where, you know, people are actually saying in the offseason, like, is it Jalen Hurts? Is it Nick Sirianni? Like, Nick Sirianni finally gave up because I think, you know, Howie Rose, again, no sourcing here, but I think, again, just like at the University of Michigan, I think Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie set him down and said, look here. And say it just like that. Look here. It's either you give up these play calling responsibilities because you are not Doug Peterson and Andy Reid, or you're out of here. That's basically what they said. And you know, again, no sourcing here, but you can kind of see it, right? Like, the Eagles, for those of you deep Eagles fans, you know they kind of broke the rule, right? A lot of Eagles fans, they think it's bad juju to bring in former Cowboys, right? And who did they bring in but Kellen Moore, right? The guy who fixed Dak Prescott, fixed Justin Herbert, and they brought Jalen Hurts in, and he's a coach in waiting. I definitely think that there's like this wink deal. I've said it before on this podcast. I'll say it again. Again, no sourcing here. But like I said, and Trey's heard me say this, I know Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman, never met them before, but know them better than they know themselves. So, like, you know, I think that, you know, I think to go along with this question, to transition all over. Y'all like that? You like that, Trey? Transition all over from me mid-sentence into here. Like, I definitely think they sat him down, said, all right, yeah, you either going to give up these play caller responsibilities, and it's so bad, you done strained the relationship between Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts so bad that he doesn't want to be here anymore. It doesn't matter what we do. We're basically going to have to, like, lock you in a closet, whatever he's calling plays, to get him to stay here. And he went to Carolina. So he's not here anymore. You took away Jalen Hurts coach. So we're going to bring in Kellen Moore. And they probably didn't tell him that they basically all but promised him the job. Again, I know them better. No sourcing here, but I don't think Kellen Moore comes here when he's like there as the second in command in LA, essentially. Comes here, takes basically a demotion. You know, I don't think he would have come here without that guarantee that Nick Sirianni will be nowhere near Jalen Hurts, like nowhere near the quarterback room, nowhere near the offense. And I don't think he comes here if he's not guaranteed that he's going to be the coach if Nick Sirianni screws it up this year. And I think that there's, you know, to answer this question and from the other one, yeah, I think Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job. You know, some of y'all will read the article. Go read it from Tim McManus. And some of you will read it and you'll probably say, well, like some of my friends, and Trey knows them, said today on Facebook and Twitter and all around, like, how did he keep his job? He kept his job because Jalen Hurts said, look, man, they had some guarantees. I think, again, no sourcing here. I think Jalen Hurts came and saved them. I think that Jeffrey Lurie didn't want to pay Doug Peterson because he's still paying Doug Peterson's contract for the next, like, 4 years. I just don't think he wanted to pay another coach. I just don't think he wanted to have hundreds of millions of dollars committed to coaches for the next 6 years. So I think that that's what it is. On top of still paying Carson Wentz and everything else that he's doing, I don't think he wanted all of that money. And so I do think Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job, and I think that's why you see a more humble Nick Sirianni now, because he knows that if Jalen Hurts, if the offense, if the team doesn't look good, he's out of here. Trey?
So I don't think, not in the sense that I don't see it. I really don't know that I see a scenario in which the Eagles underperform this year. So let's say the Eagles go where we at a 17 game season now. So I don't see a scenario where the Eagles go like 10-7 again, right? Or 11-7. And, we make the playoffs and get knocked out in the second round or something like that, where Nick Sirianni gets fired, right? I do see a scenario in which we play very poorly this year and he does get fired. However, I don't really see those scenarios being actually very likely. I think with Kellen Moore here, Brian Johnson is gone. Obviously, Jalen would have loved to have him here, but things didn't work out. And I think with Nick Sirianni, the combination of Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore, I think, and this is speculation, is going to work out very well. Because Kellen is a former quarterback, right? So he can relate to Jalen in a way that maybe, I don't know if Brian Johnson ever played quarterback. He's much older. But he can relate to Jalen in a different way.
He played quarterback at your favorite school. He was the backup to Tim Tebow.
Brian Johnson was.
Yeah, he played. He
really
played QB at your favorite school.
I didn't know that actually, but
fun fact for those of you that don't know that, you probably played NCAA with QB 13 or 14. That was Brian Johnson's number. Just so for those of you that don't know.
Okay, I actually did not know. That's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah, so he played QB at UF. Your favorite basketball program.
Yes. Yep. But so I think it's going to work out really well. And when you were talking about kind of the Andy Reid type tree where head coach kind of does everything offensively, at least, it made me think about Eric Bieniemy. And kind of the question a lot of people have about Eric Bieniemy is, why is he not taking any head coaching jobs? Like, he has to have some head coaching offers. And the answer is, he is very crucial. He was very crucial to that offense in KC. But at the same time, I think two things. He realized, I don't think he really wanted to be a head coach, but also he wasn't in control. He wasn't truly in control of that offense. It's Andy
Sorry,
Reid.
I'm wrong. I'm wrong. He was a quarterback at Utah.
Utah. Okay.
Same thing. Sorry.
And I think here in with the Eagles, I don't necessarily foresee Kellen Moore wanting to take control of the offense. I see a scenario in which Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts, which we've seen in training camp, like I think it was like something like 130 plus throws where Jalen hadn't thrown an interception in training camp, that something's working right with this new dynamic with Kellen Moore thrown into the mix. This is all to say, I don't necessarily think he's coaching for his job this year, because I think that they might have found a good combo this year. And I think we'll see that, and this might be this is just me kind of speculating that they're not interested in going through a whole nother coaching search anytime soon. So I foresee that Nick Sirianni's job is actually a lot more secure than you might think. But on the same hand, like I first said, if we like significantly underperform, then obviously, yeah. But I don't see that as, because I don't see that as likely. I think his job is relatively secure.
All right. Well, Trey doesn't think he's coaching for his job. I do. And by the way, I do have to recorrect that fun fact. The fun fact was he was a backup to a quarterback that we all know very, very well, Alex Smith at the University of Utah. So that's who it was. So same thing. he was a backup to another college football legend, Alex Smith. So those two that remember that University of Utah program, if you're old enough, like the two of us, you remember that University of Utah, like Alex Smith was the number one pick because that University of Utah offense was crazy back a couple of years ago in the early 2000s. Like y'all remember that how crazy that University of Utah offense was. It was a cheat code in college football. Remember?
Yeah. That's the same year as Aaron Rodgers, right?
I believe so. And Marshawn Lynch, yeah, that class was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I believe.
Yeah, moving right along. Justin Herbert, some breaking news from last week that we did not get to. I know you Chargers fans are probably happy we didn't get to it, but Justin Herbert has a lower leg injury. I know he said there he's in a boot. They expect him to play next month during their season opener. So, I am of the mindset that he just got a new contract a few years ago. And now he has his first big injury, I should say. And as neither one of us, Trey or I, are quarterbacks, but with a quarterback, it's all in your leg, it's all in your ankle. A lower leg ankle injury can kind of destroy you if you're a quarterback. And what we know about Justin Herbert is he's a statue. He's like he's one of the last few like non-mobile QBs who just got into the league, right? Like he's been in the league, 2-3 years? So literally he's only just gotten into the league and he's a statue. He's like the last statue. Like even Kenny Pickett can run. He's like the last statue and who's a young quarterback in the league. I don't think this bodes well for him. I think with a new coach, you need to be available. And we know from his days in San Francisco, Jim Harbaugh. Like I'll say this, we know Jim Harbaugh likes a mobile quarterback. Like y'all see, even with what's his name that he had in Michigan, JJ McCarthy, even he was mobile. Like, so, he doesn't really like statue quarterbacks. And so I already thought that Justin Herbert's days were numbered in LA anyway. Trey remembers me saying that on a podcast a few months ago, and I've said it to him in person. Like, I will tell y'all that, like, I don't think Justin Herbert's going to be a Charger for much longer. I kind of think the same thing about Josh Allen in Buffalo. Like, you'll have another 2 to 3 years before both of these quarterbacks won't be where they are now, underperforming with these organizations who don't give them enough help. So obviously, Josh Allen wishes he had Keenan Allen and all the help that the Chargers have given, Justin Herbert. Obviously, they lost Austin Eckler to DC, but that's just one loss. But they still have Keenan Allen and all the other weapons. But yeah, I think this is big for Herbert. I don't think his job is in jeopardy. I don't think he's going to get replaced, obviously, but I think his days are numbered because he's not the type of quarterback. Even though he has great accuracy, he's a superstar, but he's not the type of quarterback. And Trey knows this, that a Jim Harbaugh likes. Like y'all ain't gotta look far, but look at JJ McCarthy. Like JJ McCarthy does something that Justin Herbert doesn't do, which is run. Like Justin Herbert will sit there and wait until somebody comes open. That's why he gets in trouble. So, I just think that Justin Herbert got injured at the wrong time. I think it's a bad time to get injured when you have a new coach and they have to do systems. And we know Jim Harbaugh likes to run a complicated system. So, I think Justin Herbert's days are numbered. Trey?
Yeah, so this is an interesting situation because you're a quarterback, right? And obviously your feet, your legs are like paramount, right? If you can't step into a throw, we've seen it with a number of quarterbacks on the Eagles. Jalen, even at one point with like Michael Vick, you saw it with Donovan McNabb. Like if you can't, and just in general, any quarterback, you can't properly step into a throw, it's very difficult to make throws. We've also seen quarterbacks, dislocated finger, broken finger, that type of situation. You could still, do your thing.
You hear me? Unless your name is Patrick Mahomes.
Right. Unless your name is Patrick Mahomes, yeah. So I am of the belief that I think this is actually going to work. And as long as Justin Herbert can get healthy and stay healthy, I think this is actually going to work. Justin Herbert is not the most mobile, but I think they can scheme him into being a little bit more mobile. Justin Herbert is a big guy. He's like 6'5", 6'6", and like 230. I want to say something like that. So I think they are going to use that to their advantage. They're gonna. So you're not going to see Justin Herbert running, 40 yards down the field. But I think you will see some QB sneaks. I think you're going to see some designed QB runs, some like
6'6",
huh
6'6".
6'6". You're going to see some. I think you're going to see a couple options when the situation really fits. And him, Justin Herbert will get a couple first downs, that type of situation. Because while Justin Herbert is no, Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or any of the other very mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, he's also not. I don't consider him to be a relative statue. But I'm of the opinion that this will work. He's got to get healthy. A plantar fasciitis injury is an injury that, if it's not dealt with properly, can linger. For those who have plantar fasciitis, that can be a very painful thing to deal with. I'm not sure that he actually has plantar fasciitis. I know that this is just a injury to the plantar fascia in his foot, on his right foot at that.
That's how it starts.
So we'll see like where this goes with his injury. I think the other problem here is, and we've talked about it already, is will the NCAA stuff with Michigan and Jim Harbaugh kind of hang over Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers at all this season, on top of any of the other issues that the Chargers deal with, including Justin Herbert's injury. So yeah.
All right. Well, moving right along, and Trey can start here. Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, gets a contract extension. Again, Tua. We didn't talk about this last week. Tua Tagovailoa got a contract extension. A very, very big surprise. And Tyreek Hill, his number one target, got a contract extension. But we're going to talk about Tyreek Hill. Trey, what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's no surprise here. He's top 3 or 4 receiver in the league. The last, I want to say 3 or 4 years, he's had like 115 plus receptions. Is a very dominant receiver. A big, massive deep threat, can score literally at any time he's on the field. If he's healthy, there's no telling what's going to happen when he's on the field. And it makes sense. You got a good young quarterback. Tyreek Hill is about 30, I believe, 31.
30. I was just looking at it.
and I don't see, because of his play style, and actually, for those who don't know, Tyreek Hill is actually a phenomenal route runner, and he has great hands. He is not, this is no shade to Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson was basically a one-trick pony. He was not, he wasn't the best route runner, didn't necessarily have the greatest hands in the world. And I'm making that comparison because they're speedsters on the field. So I'm excited. I love Tyreek Hill. I thought he was going to be a Chief forever, but it's looking like he's going to be with the Dolphins, for at least for the next few years. And you will see what comes of that. Hopefully Tua can stay healthy and take full advantage of the connection between the two of them. And then they also have Lord have mercy. What's the other receiver?
Waddle,
Jalen Waddle, who God forbid should have been an Eagle.
Supposed to wobble, man. You can't forget that. You know the Block Party song. Get in there.
But yeah, I'm happy for him. He's the cheetah and one of the best receivers in the league. Deserves the extension.
Yeah, I mean the only competition Tyreek Hill has right now is age. 4 years, $90 million, $72.2 million guaranteed. That's it. Like, and if Miami's offensive line can hold up and give Tua that time, I think Miami again. Like I just think by default, Miami's going to be the best team in the AFC East. Probably a third seed or a second seed if the Ravens fall off. But again, like I don't know if they have enough because they're facing the God quarterback. They're in the same conference as the God quarterback. I don't think that they're going anywhere. But I mean, you can't say Miami isn't giving it the old college try, right? Like Waddle, Tua, and Tyreek Hill at least locked up for the next couple of years. So if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you're definitely happy. You definitely are a contender, at least on offense. Lost Vic Fangio, but some of them I know see that as a win. But you know, I'm of the mindset that as long as Tyreek Hill's on the field, Miami's got a chance. But you know, it's everything else around him. I have no, you know, I know some people think Tua Tagovailoa is a jag, just a guy. For those of you that don't know the sports terminology, that's what a jag is in sports, just a guy. I think he is a good quarterback. Now again, all quarterbacks are system quarterbacks, but I think he's a quarterback that can at least get you to a conference title game. I think he's relying on all his other weapons, but I think he can at least get you to a conference title game. And I just think that it's the things around him that fails. It's not him. You know, I don't think he necessarily has the right coach around him. Um, no knock on the coach. I know he's black and Indian. I know he's a Blendian. You know, I'm very happy for him. He's got a great personality, but I just don't think that's Tua Tagovailoa needs a coach that can coach him to heights unseen, like a Nick Saban. And there ain't too many Nick Sabans around here, but he needs a coach like that. He needs like an Andy Reid, a Doug Peterson around him who can take him to the next level. I don't think he has a coach that can do that. And also, I just don't think that they build enough around him. Now, again, I know I'm saying that as they just gave Tyreek Hill $90 million until he's the age 34. And again, Tyreek Hill, his only competition is Father Time and the big hit from somebody who can catch him. There ain't too many people that can do that. So, I'm of the mindset that as long as Tyreek Hill's on the field, they got a chance. But I don't know if they have the right coach to and every coach gets here. You have so much talent around you that I think it becomes you. And I think that in a minute they'll be saying that it's Nathaniel Hackett and not Tua, Jalen Waddle or the Cheetah. I think that what's his name isn't long for this world. And let me make sure I got his name. It's Hackett, right, Trey? He's the coach of the Dolphins.
I believe so. Yeah.
Hold on. I don't want to mess it up any more than I already have. I believe it's Hackett. It is Nathaniel Hackett.
Mike McDaniel is the head coach.
Mike McDaniel. See, I told you I messed it up. I said I don't think it's Hackett, but I don't think Mike McDaniel is the dude. He's not him. I don't think Mike McDaniel is that coach. I said it's Nathaniel Hackett, but it's McDaniel. See, he's one of the youngest coaches here, and he's definitely like when you think of again. I mean, that says it all, right? Like I didn't even like know his name. It's like in the back of my mind, right? Because all we focus on is Tua, Waddle, and the Cheetah. And that's exactly what I mean. And that's a problem to me, right? Like the fact that the coach is like the fourth thing I think about, and most of us forget who he is, says a lot. Unless we're watching like last season's Hard Knocks. I think most people don't know who this dude is. So Mike McDaniel, shout out to him, 41 years old. And like I said, a Blendian. So happy that he has a coaching job. But I don't know if he's the right guy to get this talent to the next level. Yeah. So, Trey, did you go yet? Yeah, you went. All right. See, I'm getting old. Y'all gotta chop it out to my head, not this. So Trey, this is you. Where do we think Brandon Ayuk and I know Morgan's somewhere smiling and probably mad that she missed all this football because it's been a while since we let the A-block off with all this football. So, where do we think Brandon Ayuk will end up? Go ahead, Trey.
So this is an interesting one because there were, I think, 4 teams. It was like the Patriots, Browns, Steelers, and Commanders that were mostly They were kind of at the top of the pack. In recent days, it's been, I think, just the Steelers and I'm forgetting what the other team. I guess it was the Patriots. I think. But
Yeah,
within the last,
it's just the Steelers. It's just the Steelers
at
at the
this
top
point, it's
now.
just the Steelers that are seemingly in serious talks to make a trade. The interesting situation here is that it does the Steelers have made it clear that they don't want to give up a player, right? So the question you have to ask yourself is how do the 49ers value Brandon Ayuk, right? Honestly, he's probably their best receiver. If not, he's their second best receiver, right? So what do the 49ers want? If I'm the 49ers, I want, the unrealistic is like a first or a second. Realistically, you're looking at a third or a fourth, right? The question is, are they willing to give up like a third and a fourth to Pittsburgh? And are they able to work out something with the Steelers where the Steelers actually they get their end of the bargain where they don't have to give up a player? And I don't know if that happens. We're getting into preseason now. And if I'm the 49ers front office, from the coaches, whoever, right, has access to Brandon Ayuk, I'm like, yo, Brandon, let's talk. We're going to figure this out, right? If you're smart about it. I don't know if that happens though. We will see. I'm kind of up in the air because it's such a strange situation to see such a, let's put aside the rivalry between the Eagles and the 49ers. It's strange to see such a talented receiver about to be traded from a team who most likely is still a Super Bowl contender. At the very least, they are, a contender to be back in the NFC title, the NFC championship game again. So it's confounding to me why this is even a conversation. Like, why are we even talking about Brandon Ayuk being traded? But I think there's two things that will happen. He'll end up with the Steelers and they'll work something out, or they can't work something out and he stays on the team and is disgruntled. And then next year, because I guess his contract, I believe, will be up next year, I think. And something will happen, and then next year they'll have the option to like franchise tag him, or he'll just leave in free agency. Because this is a really tricky situation and it's a very specific situation if the Steelers truly are the only team left that are in talks. And I think the reason why the Steelers are the only team left is because they really want to make the deal happen, but the other teams are like, the 49ers are probably asking for too much. And maybe it seems like the 49ers don't actually want to, like, their enthusiasm in terms of making the trade it's maybe the other teams are looking for it to be up here and to make a deal work, and the 49ers are kind of down here because they really don't want to make this trade. So that's my thoughts.
I'm muted. Sorry, y'all. But like I am of the mindset, and shout out to my boy. We can't talk about the team that I'm about to say without shouting out the one of my good colleagues and a friend who's a big time Steelers fan, Dom Daniele. Shout out to him because he's a big time Steelers fan, and I think that if you're the Steelers, you have to give away at least a first round pick for him because this would make anybody salivate, right? You have Russell Wilson, probably the best quarterback that the Steelers have had since Ben Roethlisberger retired, and you have a chance. So you already got George Pickens, you already got the tight end, you've already got Najee, you've got the running back, right? What are you missing? You're missing a second or a first, if you want to move Pickens into as a second receiver. Like, just imagine how salivating that is. You have George Pickens, and then you'll have Brandon Ayuk in the same wide receiver core. Like, if that don't make you salivate,
The
That is
Steelers do like their big. They like their big, like fast receivers.
Yeah. So like if that doesn't make you salivate, then as a Steelers fan, then what are you doing? Like, what's Mara or no Rooney? The Rooney family need to just do what Josh Harris did for the Sixers, man. Just stop the posturing, make the picks, do the first round, the second round, the third round, and the fourth round picks. Give that package away and get Ayuk and Pickens together with Russell Wilson. And I think, at least for the most part, I think this will be the best Steelers offense I've seen since they won the Super Bowl, man. On paper, like Russell Wilson, Pickens, Najee Harris, and Ayuk. And I think that's what Ayuk wants. He wants to be like a number one receiver. Would definitely have the chance there. He might be a number two, but in all honesty, he'll probably be a number one because I think Pickens is better as a slot or a number two anyway. But I mean, that you got to do it, man. Like whichever Rooney is over the Steelers, they just need to come in there like Josh Harris did for James Harden, big man it, send all them picks out there. Who cares if you don't have a pick until 2026? It worked out for the Rams. They went all in, put a Super Bowl team together, won a Super Bowl. Like sometimes you just, as Meek Mill say, scare money don't make no money. Put it all in there. Get it in there. So I think he ends up with the Steelers. But I'm just surprised. Again, this is why I say Josh Allen needs to leave, because he got all that pressure to preview a topic in a couple of segments. He has a lot of pressure on him, and it doesn't seem like the Bills want to do anything to help him out. So Brandon Ayuk is available, and it's kind of like the same thing Trey remembers me saying that. I said the 49ers made a mistake not going after Lamar Jackson about this time last summer when Lamar was looking for a team and the 49ers didn't want to do it. But I mean, because they wanted to save money, because they had a lot of money in George Kittle. They got a lot of money in Debo. Brock Purdy doesn't have money yet, but is going to get his money. And now look at y'all, 49ers fans. I told y'all last summer, I said it. They are going to lose either Brandon Ayuk or George Kittle. And it looks like, well, it not looks like, you're definitely about to lose Brandon Ayuk for nothing. And as a Bills fan, Brandon Ayuk is available. Obviously, the Bills have nothing of value that would help the 49ers out unless they're putting Josh Allen on the market. And why would you do that? There's nothing that they have that you would want. But I don't know why the Bills didn't try the same thing I said about the 49ers, why they didn't have a conversation about Lamar Jackson. And I said, because Trey remembers me saying that this is going to cost them a Super Bowl. And what did it do? It cost them a Super Bowl. So I am of the mindset that when a superstar NFL player or a star NFL talent is available and you have the assets and you're not the Eagles, this is the same thing the Eagles did. They got A.J. Brown for picks and the Wawa Hoogie. If you're not willing to do that, what are you doing? That's how the Eagles got all that talent, right? They didn't draft it all like the 49ers did. They went out and got that talent. That's what you can do when you have a lot of picks. So I don't understand why the Buffalo Bills aren't in this. But it's great for the Steelers because they'll probably end up with him unless a team stakes him in the last minute. I think Steelers fans, all the Steelers fans, Trey knows a lot of them too, because there are a lot of Steelers fans in our church. They are going to be real happy in a few days when Brandon Ayuk is a Steeler. And I don't really mind the Steelers as long as they're not playing the Eagles. So, I think anytime both teams in PA are good, it's great. It's great for the state. It's great for the rivalry. So, I'm of the mindset good for Brandon Ayuk. And good for the Steelers who have had a really good offseason. Russell Wilson, really good offseason. What can you ask for? Mike Tomlin has a chance, and that's all he needs because he's done a lot with less. So this might be an overabundance for him. Trey, you got anything to add before we move on to basketball? All right. So Team USA destroys Brazil. I'll start here. I think like Trey knows. I said it for the last 2 days. Joel Embiid was due. He is a slow starter. And as anybody who's watched the Sixers know, Joel Embiid really doesn't start fast. If he starts out fast, we know it's going to be a problem. But Joel Embiid finally had a game. He was due. It's getting the crunch time, and as Trey and I know, and like I said, I take the Sixers fans hat off here. Like Joel Embiid, when it's going gets tough, he gets going, man, and that's what happens. He got going, 14 points in the first half, 3 for 3 from the 3-point line. I don't think he's had a 3-point line like that in a while. So he's getting healthy, he's looking good, and lo and behold, they destroy Brazil. Because I have said this before, the best player on the team, no disrespect to LeBron James, no disrespect to Steph Curry, and no disrespect to Kevin Durant, is Joel Embiid. He is the best player on that team. And that's what it is. And you see it. Like Brazil got destroyed. He's dealing with some ankle soreness. But I think he's going to play tomorrow, and I think he's going to at least drop 15 to 20 points tomorrow if they let him play. Now, Trey and I have been through this song and dance before where people are like, oh, it's a little tic-tac injury. I don't think Joel should play, and he plays anyway. So it's always a problem when you have Joel Embiid with a little nicky-knack injury, and some people are like, he should sit, and he plays, and those are when he drops like 50 points. That's and I'm not saying he's going to do that against Serbia on 1 day rest, but I don't doubt it. Like Team USA is looking good. Again, I tell people like you see the Joel Embiid effect, right? Joel Embiid didn't play a couple of games ago. Steph Curry had his worst game of the Olympics. Joel Embiid plays. Oh my goodness, look at all the space that Steph Curry has to get layups, shoot threes. I'm just saying, but Team USA is better when Joel Embiid, LeBron James, and Steph Curry are doing their thing. And I just think it says a lot that, he finally had a good game. And Devin Booker got off because Joel Embiid was taking all the attention. And we finally had obviously, Devin Booker has been great. He's been one of the better defenders this Olympics. But, when Joel Embiid does well, as Trey has seen in these last couple of games, it's either Devin Booker. It's a shooter that also gets off right along with Joel Embiid. And, y'all are seeing why Tyrese Maxey loves playing with Joel Embiid. Trey?
Yeah, you look at Joel Embiid's line, 14 points, 12 minutes. His plus minus was like 20-something, I think. So, I mean, it's good to see him back on the floor. Hopefully he's able to get right in order to play tomorrow against Serbia because, and we'll talk about this later, that's going to be crucial for us to win that game. And I Colin and I are in agreement with that when Joel Embiid is on the floor, this team is way better. There's more fluidity. Like you said, I don't even think Steph really even hit any threes, but it opens up the court for that because he draws even more attention away from Steph. Like we've talked about before, Joel Embiid is not really a big he's not really a big pick and roll guy. He's more of a
he's getting better at it playing
high elbow, low block type of player. But I think the key here is that when Joel Embiid is healthy and on the floor, this team is significantly better. I think I'm looking at the box score now. Every single player on Team USA played and scored points. Tyrese Halliburton having the lowest, he only had one shot for 2 points, but everybody else had five or more points on the court, which is absolutely insane. Now, can we attribute all of that to Joel Embiid? Not necessarily, but I think he's a key piece to the offensive success that we saw against Brazil. So that's my thoughts.
All right. So Joel Embiid, like I alluded to earlier, is dealing with some ankle soreness. For those of you that are worried about it, it sounds like it's just he just felt some discomfort. It's not anything that should affect him in October. I know that's all the people that listen to this podcast really care about. I am of the mindset that I think if the game was a lot tighter, he would have played. Daryl Morey. For those of you that follow Daryl Morey on social media and the gram and stuff, he's a good follow. I'm of the mindset that everybody should follow him on social media. He's a good follow. He was in attendance last night at last night's game, and Joel Embiid played. But I'm of the mindset that if that game was closer, if it was like a 5-point game, if it was down to the wire, they would have played him. But because they were up by like 20 points, they didn't need to play him. So, I think that Joel Embiid will be fine. I think he plays tomorrow at 3:00 on USA Network. And I think that, he tends to do well when he sees Nikola Jokic. I mean, he's about 8-2 now against him. So I think it's always good when Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic lock horns. So I can't wait to see that. But we've seen this before with Steve Kerr. Saw this with that boy Drew Holiday. He had a little ankle injury and he didn't play him. Now I think Drew Holiday's ankle injury was a little bit more serious than Joel Embiid's. So we'll see. But I fully expect Joel Embiid to play just because we've seen how Anthony Davis, as great as he is, he's like the number 4 or 5 big man, depending on how you rank it. But he's barbecue chicken when Nikola Jokic sees him. So is Bam Adebayo. So I think that they will be shooting Joel Embiid's ankle up with what they gave Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl to make sure that he plays tomorrow. So and that's no disrespect to Anthony Davis or Bam, but we've seen what Nikola Jokic did to Bam in the finals a year ago, and we just saw what he did to AD a couple of months ago in the playoffs. So it ain't it's not a. I'm sorry, not in the playoffs, but a couple of months ago in that matchup. So I'm of the mindset that the best thing, especially against Nikola Jokic, is for Joel Embiid to play. But if he wakes up tomorrow and his ankle isn't feeling it, and they don't want to risk it, so be it. I think that they can beat Serbia without Embiid, but I think it would be easier if Embiid plays. But Trey?
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with you. I'm hoping that this is nothing serious, and we'll get into some controversy around this injury a little bit later. I'm hoping that he plays. I think there's actually a pretty good chance that he doesn't. I agree with you that without Joel Embiid, this team can win. But remember, Serbia is a very good team, and they have one of the best players in the world, and Nikola Jokic. And when you have arguably, the other one of the other best players in the world in Joel Embiid, and he's not on the court competing against somebody like Nikola Jokic, there's a hole there. And the question is, can Team USA, if Joel Embiid is not able to play tomorrow,
can Anthony Davis have the performance of his life against Nikola Jokic? Something that Lakers fans know they haven't seen in a while.
The last person really shut down, or I wouldn't say shut down, but actually really successfully guard Nikola Jokic was Dwight Howard in that bubble run with the Lakers. But the thing with this is, again, like I said, without Joel Embiid, can Team Serbia go ahead and beat? Can Team USA beat Team Serbia? Lord have mercy, I'm getting my words mixed up.
Sorry, we're both tired. It's all good, y'all. We're soldiering on, but you finish your thought. I mean, you can just.
No, that was the end of my thought. And that, I mean, I also kind of answered this question here that yes, I think possibly missing. I don't think it. I think it definitely, obviously, it impacts our chances against Serbia. I think we can win, but it significantly lowers our chances of winning without Joel Embiid on the floor.
Yeah, I'll say it like this. I already said this as well, but the question is the question. again, I don't want Sixers anybody who's whether you're a Team USA fan or a Sixers fan to see this lower third and think, oh my God, I missed something. No, you didn't miss anything. Sure, there is no announcement. I have no sourcing on this. This is just spinning it forward if he does miss tomorrow. I don't think I said it. I don't think he will. Trey thinks that they'll probably hold him out, but I don't think he will miss the game tomorrow. I think he's really tired of people saying he's ducking Nikola Jokic, even though he has an 8-2 record against him. So I think if Joel Embiid can help it, he plays tomorrow. I think the 76ers and a lot of Sixers fans would prefer he doesn't play tomorrow, but I think he plays tomorrow. And whatever happens, happens. But I think if he doesn't play, then like I just said, Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo need to have the game of their lives against Nikola Jokic. Something neither one of them, and I'm talking about defensively. Like, I know that both of them are capable. They're both really good defenders, but the best defender of Nikola Jokic resides in Philadelphia. So the Bam and AD don't really have the muscle and the length, I guess, to really bother Jokic the way Embiid does. And I think that if he doesn't play, that AD, that the strategy has to change. I know that they have Eric Spoelstra, but the strategy has to change. Maybe you need to play a zone. The Olympics and a zone, right? The Syracuse guy saying play a zone. Maybe you need to play a zone. Maybe you need to, risk it and double team Nikola Jokic and force the ball out of his hand just to give Bam and AD help. Twisting my words. It's just to give them some help and just live or die by Serbia's shooters making threes. So maybe that's what you do. I just don't think that either Bam or AD can hold up one-on-one against Jokic. We haven't seen it as often as they play each other, especially AD. So I just think that the strategy has to change, but I still think that they have a good chance of winning. I think it's easier if Joel Embiid is on the floor, and it's harder if he's not. So moving right along, who will be the most important player during this run to winning their 5th straight gold medal? So I think I have a top 3 here. Joel Embiid, because I think Joel Embiid is there to make sure that Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, obviously they don't need to worry about Giannis now, but to make sure that no big man gets an easy lane and that they wear each other out on both sides of the ball. And that's what I think he's there for. So I think that's why I said that yesterday was a really good sign, because the games matter more now because it's the knockout round. So it was good to see Joel Embiid do what a lot of Sixers fans are used to seeing him do, drop a stupid amount of points in like 12 minutes. So it was good to see that. So I think Joel Embiid will be important. I think Steph Curry, this is the worrying thing if you're a fan of another team. Like, Steph Curry hasn't really gotten off. Like, I said this about Joel Embiid, as Trey knows, a couple of days ago before he went off. Like, it's really worrying that Steph Curry hasn't gotten off yet. So I think that there will be a game. There will be a Steph Curry game in these next couple of games. And I think it's Joel Embiid, Steph Curry, and I think it's Kevin Durant. I've said before that I think Kevin Durant needs to be inserted into the starting lineup. He's been struggling since his, 10 of 10, 20 of 20 game against Serbia last weekend. So the weekend before last. So I think that Joel Embiid, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant are the 3 most important players on Team USA. I know some of y'all are going to be like, you're disrespecting LeBron James, but LeBron James is the closer. And he's been like, you see it, right? Like, Devin Booker and Joel Embiid got off, so he just gave you a cool 10, 5, and 7 type of game. Like, LeBron's a chameleon. Whatever you need, he'll give you. So I think with a team with so much talent, and I think that Devin Booker getting off is even better for Team USA. But I think ultimately it comes down to Joel Embiid, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. Those are my three. Those are my three most important players. I didn't really. Yeah, those are my three. Trey.
I'm actually going to go with somebody, and I've been talking about him since day one. I thought he was going to be very, very key. I named him as one of my, players of the Olympics potentially, at least for basketball, is Anthony Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
He's second on the team in scoring. He had 26 against Puerto Rico. He had 17 or 18 against Brazil. He is quietly making a case that he's not necessarily he is one of the better players on this team, but he's quietly showing himself to be that player who, you look at the stat line and you say, okay, Ant was second in scoring against Brazil, and is kind of being that player that has been consistent as well throughout the course of the Olympics so far, and has only started one game, mind you that. So I think obviously Embiid, your Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron, but I do think that we've seen Ant a number of times pick up the pace on both sides of the floor, like in terms of energy, and I think he's going to be crucial for them in winning this. He's going to be that guy. He's going to be the I think he's going to end up. We're going to look back on this Olympics, and I think he's going to have been that kind of glue guy, aside from LeBron and what he's done, especially closing throughout the Olympics. So for me, I think it really is going to be, we're going to look back and say it's Anthony Edwards.
I went against type here. Usually it's me singing the Anthony Edwards praise, but it's Trey this time. That's good. I totally forgot about Anthony. See that Joel Embiid and Devin Booker show up, and I forget about Anthony Edwards the game before that. So that another dude just had a birthday, 23 years old, man. That's yeah, definitely gonna be important. But the other controversy here in Philly, do we agree with Charles Barkley that Joel Embiid is overweight and that is why he deals with injuries so much? So I'm going to start here because Trey knows I have a lot to say about this. He's seen me on Facebook. And he knows how I feel about this. So I know that Charles Barkley is 6'10", 6'11". He's not 7 feet. He was a power forward, more of a small forward. In today's NBA, he'd probably be a small forward more than a power forward.
I believe Charles was only like 6'7". Like he was like a Draymond Green size. He was just heavier.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's why they
call
6'6". Around pounds, 6'6". Yeah. So Charles Barkley was that guy. I know he knows a little bit about what it's like to be a fat NBA player. But Trey, Charles. Look, with all due respect, because you're a former player, you've gotten to a level that Trey and I will never get to. But, bro, you are a power forward. Like when you were younger, you might have been a small, even though they weren't really doing small ball back then, but, you probably have been a small ball center. But you are a power forward who is 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", maybe at your tallest. You don't know what it's like to be 7'2". Be 200 plus pounds or whatever he is, because I think that 280 he lost, as Trey and I and anybody who's watched the Sixers know. Joel Embiid came back really slim last year. He was in shape, and it didn't help him because it didn't stop Jonathan Kuminga from diving on his league. And that's what I want y'all to understand. Like, being in shape really doesn't matter when you're 7 feet and you dive, you hustle, you have a unique skill set. You can do multiple things. He is a unicorn. And he doesn't need to do what most people think you need to do to be a center in the NBA anymore. It's not that type of game. Dwight Howard said the same thing. He said he was 390. And I'm like, Dwight, he's not 390. And it's even more disrespectful because you just played with this man 2 or 3 years ago. You know he's not 390. You know how he works. How he works. And I just think that that's the nuance here. Like, if Charles Barkley would have said, hey, Joel Embiid isn't in game shape, it's really hard for me because I'm not an NBA player. But I don't understand how Charles Barkley, I think this is just because this is the narrative. People know that they can say, oh, Joel Embiid is fat. And because most people aren't 7'2", they don't understand what that's like. So they don't understand it because most people are not 7'2" and can do what Joel Embiid can do. But I'm of the mindset that the dude missed 3 months of basketball, had a month off, but is trying to get himself back in game shape. It's not his weight. It's the fact that he's not in game shape because he missed 3 months or 4 months. When did he get injured? Mid-January. Didn't come back until April. So he missed 3.5. You want to count June because obviously the Sixers got eliminated. 4.5 months of basketball. So he needs to get back in shape. This is why I don't agree with Sixers fans, and Trey knows because he see me go to war with them on the various Sixers groups that we're in and sports groups that we're in. Because I go to war on this because he got injured. He's a little bit injury prone, but it's not that he's fat. It's that he's not in game shape. And Trey and I knows as former basketball players, again, never got to the level of Charles Barkley and Joel Embiid. But I think that's worse for basketball players when you miss time and you got to get in game shape. And obviously it's even worse when you got to play for 40 minutes instead of 48. So you don't really have that time to really, bulk up and do something, right? So I think that's what it is. He's not in game shape, which is why I'm of the mindset that he should play. And I disagree with Charles Barkley because it's not that he's fat. It's that he's not in game shape, which is why if you're a Sixers fan, if you're a Joel Embiid fan, you should want him to play because if nothing else, we saw it yesterday. You saw everything that Sixers fans see every game. Like Trey and I have gone to games. We see Joel Embiid do what he did yesterday on a regular, like switching the screens, blowing up somebody, driving, blocking the shots, diving on the floor when most of us think he shouldn't be diving, but that's just Joel Embiid. He's a hustler. And y'all disrespect him every time. Charles Barkley and others included by calling him fat. He isn't in game shape. So before I say something that I'll regret, he isn't in game shape. And those of you that watch basketball, former players, y'all need to be able, because a lot of these people are ignorant. They're not sports enthusiasts like Trey and I who watch this game, dive into it, look at it, play it on 2K, go to games, actually look at it with analytical eyes, not just making statements to make statements like Charles Barkley did. Like got on Paul, for those that don't know what happened, he got on Paul George's podcast yesterday, said, this is my personal opinion that Joel Embiid is fat. And just says it, this is such an ignorant statement because y'all not his doctor. Y'all don't talk to this man. I don't know him personally, but I know he doesn't talk to Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal because we have seen them both on the record saying he doesn't talk to them unless he has to. Like, he doesn't talk to them. So I think they're jealous. They're trying to get attention. They're doing what a lot of politicians do to try and talk to people when they know they're not talking to them. Like trying to talk through the media saying he's fat. No, he's out of game shape, and he had to deal with South Sudan and other players. But when you see him against Nikola Jokic and the big men that are not as fast as him, you see that he just isn't in game shape yet. And that's different than being overweight. He's not in game shape. Trey? And know the difference. Sorry, Trey. Know the difference between game shape and being fat. Go. Go ahead.
So I'm actually going to disagree with you partially. I don't necessarily agree that Joel Embiid is overweight necessarily. But here's where I'll start with where I agree with you. I agree. I don't think Joel Embiid is in top game shape, right? He missed a lot of time during the regular season, and then ended up missing a little bit of time during the Olympics. So he's not really in game shape. For any athlete, if you don't use it, you lose it. Personal experience. I hadn't played basketball in a very, very long time. I went on vacation in Florida in July, and now I have some tendonitis in my knee, right? That's how that happens, right? So you're not in game shape. You haven't played in a while. You get back on the court. You don't stretch. You're not in game shape. Meaning, what that means is, for those who don't know, what that means is you're not in the physical. You don't have the physical. For example, you're not in like running shape essentially on the court is the best way to put it. But I do agree in the sense I wouldn't say he's overweight. Joel Embiid is 7 foot 280. Nikola Jokic is 6'11", 284, right there. So he's a foot shorter, but 4 pounds heavier. And Nikola Jokic is one of the, well, visually on the court, if you're watching on TV, he looks like he's one of the slowest players in the league, but honestly is actually a lot quicker than you think. I would like to see Joel Embiid lose a few pounds. And let me clarify what I mean by lose a few pounds. I don't mean I want him to be skinnier, right? What I would like to see, and I think could be helpful as far as injury, because so here's something that is common amongst all very tall people and athletes, is that they tend to have a lot of issues with their feet, their ankles, their legs, right? You're 280 pounds. That's a lot of weight on your legs. So Joel Embiid is not in game shape, right? And potentially is, and I'll use Charles Barkley's words, overweight. I wouldn't say he's overweight, but.
And we should just to clarify, no, we don't actually know his public weight.
Right.
Like,
we're going off of his reported NBA weight, which is 280. Right. So Joel Embiid could very well be 300 right now, right? Or he could be 275. We don't know, but his listed weight by the NBA is 280. So I would love to see him lose, I don't know if it's 5-10 pounds. And what I mean by, and here's how I would like to see that weight lost, or it might even be gain, is that I would love to see him a little bit more cut, right? I would like to see Embiid a little bit more filled out, because I do believe that the fact that he's out of game shape and maybe is a little bit physically out of shape is the cause for some of the injuries that he's had, right? Some of them have been contact injuries. Somebody stepped on his leg last year. But some of these are no contact injuries. Like, he has ankle soreness, and I think that has to do with the fact not only that he's out of game shape, but I think it has to do with a little bit of out of physical shape. So I think you look at a player, even like, a much shorter player who's a guard on the same team, Steph Curry, had tons of feet issues and ankle injury issues earlier in his career. He got a shoe that was designed specifically for his foot. He wears the ankle braces now, and it's few and far between when you see Steph having any very serious ankle or feet issues. We've constantly seen Embiid have ankle and feet issues over the course of his career. Ankle, feet, just leg, waist down injury issues. So while I agree with you on the way that Charles and sometimes Shaq as well it's almost there's this, for those who are watchers of Twitch and other streamers, there's this term that's become popular now called clip farming. Essentially what clip farming is, where you say something that is provocative, or you say something that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be that provocative per se, but you say it in a very provocative way, so that people could take that very small clip, 5-second, 10-second clip off of a podcast, off of a Twitch stream, off of a a show on ESPN or whatever, and they throw that out there, and now there's this big controversy. People are talking about it everywhere. And I think, unfortunately, Charles, despite the fact that I like Inside on the NBA, and Colin and I disagree on that from a basketball and analysis standpoint, Charles and Shaq, and sometimes Kenny, but not so much Kenny, are guilty of clip farming, and saying provocative things, to get a point across that otherwise could have been stated in a much more I'm not going to say coherent, in a much more tame, or I'll say in a much more tame way. So to sum that up, I believe Joel Embiid is both out of game shape and a little bit out of physical shape. And I would love to see him actually get a little bit more cut, and see how that affects injuries, because it is very true that taller players deal with issues with their legs, feet, waist down injuries, because they're taller and often they might have skinnier legs or whatever the case may be. We've seen it with Porzingis, who's about two inches taller or so, but is 40 pounds lighter according to NBA weights. So depending on the style of play, that could help or hurt. I don't know. I think it would be a good idea. I don't like how Charles Barkley presented this point, though.
Amen. I'll just say it like this, bro. Like, the only person who can really relate to Joel Embiid is Shaq, and we know that Shaq doesn't put it in a way that makes it digestible, and we know that Shaq has his own problems, as he's admitted when Dwight Howard was not shaming, but how he shamed Dwight Howard because Dwight Howard was shorter and doing things that Shaq only wished he could. I tell Trey this all the time. Sometimes you gotta look at the source of it and just be able to see like that at some point that this stuff doesn't really come from a place that is actually there to help you. And I think that while Charles Barkley may think he's helping, I think by now he should realize that Joel Embiid has been on interviews and he says he's seen it and he takes it as criticism, but Trey and I know if you've seen Joel Embiid talk, like sometimes Joel Embiid, if you've seen Joel Embiid when he says that, and you look at his eyes, his body language, he says that as if he says, "I see it." Basically, he's not. As for those of you that don't know, may not have ever seen Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is not the confront. He's more of the surgical confrontational person than he is the actual confrontational person. Like he will come at you, but will come at you through quotes, and he's not that in your face type of person. I mean, some of y'all have seen it. He has gotten into some fights and basically used his size. I mean, I'm not saying he's not tough. He's African. He's probably had to deal with stuff that some of us know and don't know about. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's not a fighter. What I am saying is Joel Embiid is not that get in your face type of person. So when y'all see him on his interviews and stuff, I would say don't take him at his word when you see him on the NBA, because they have to do those interviews on Inside the NBA during the season when they do well. And you see him, because he did it just recently, saying, I listened to Charles Barkley and Shaq, and I know you're trying to help me. Some of y'all should see that and read between the lines and just look at his eyes. Joel Embiid sees it, but he doesn't. He's not a person that likes that. Like, I don't know him personally, but just looking at him, Trey and I have been in rooms with him and seen him play. Like, he's not that type of person that he remembers stuff and is just waiting to use it. Like, he's one of those people. He's not the confrontational type, but he's the type of the remember and I'll bring it up later type. like LeBron's quote, if I was taking mental notes, that's Joel Embiid. Like, that's Joel Embiid already knowing, already seeing. Some of y'all have seen it when he attacked, he did it recently speaking to Minnesota with Karl-Anthony Towns. Y'all remember when he had to defend him, so he did the whole, Greco-Roman choke on Karl-Anthony Towns because he had to defend Ben Simmons. I don't think he necessarily wanted to do it, but that's the position he was in, so he had to do it. So stuff like that. But when he says that he listens to Charles Barkley and Shaq, yeah, he does, but it's not in the way that y'all think he's listening to it. But moving right along, NBA and FIBA are in conversations for European expansion / league expansion. So my reaction to this is I'm for it as long as they don't do it like the NFL does it. I think a European league would be great for the NBA, as long as there's no real interaction besides in preseason for the teams in America to go over there, besides for a preseason game. As long as they don't do what the NFL does, which is send 2 teams over there and then immediately have them play, I think it's great. I think that if the NBA can use FIBA's momentum, don't use those rules, because some of those rules are stupid. Goaltending is goaltending. You shouldn't be able to affect the ball when it's in the rim. But I think that if they can use some of that and use some of FIBA stuff with point differential and stuff, I think it can be good. But use it in the European League. Don't use it in the American League. But I think this is great. This is the NBA being progressive. This is the NBA looking at that energy and trying to be the first to get a European League. And I think that this is great. This is great for the NBA, and if something good comes from that, I think that they should have an NBA Europe. And just again, my only caution is just make sure that the American teams and the European teams stay separate unless it's during the preseason, not for a game that matters. If you want to do an all-star game, this might set up for that all-star game that Trey and I talked about offline, America versus the world. I think that would be great. But other than that, not for anything that counts.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it generally should stay separate. I think the NBA has done a great job over the years. I mean, and this is not news. This is not new news. The NBA has done a phenomenal job over the last, I don't know, let's say 12 years or so, going over to places like China and playing games in the preseason and stuff like that. And we also know that globally, the NBA, or not rather, not globally, but in the NBA, if we were to look at the top 15, 20 players in the league, a number of those players are foreign. They are not from the United States. They play somewhere in Europe. They're from somewhere in Africa. They're from, so it's, I think it's good. And I think it only helps to grow the sport. And when I say the sport, I mean basketball in general, not just the NBA. So yeah, there's not much else to say with that. I agree with you. Euro rules should stay Euro rules. American rules should stay American rules. Goaltending, I agree with you, is goaltending. It's yeah.
Yeah, I think again the only thing that I want the NBA to use is point differential because I think that's good and it makes teams I think as Trey knows, I think the unwritten rules of basketball are stupid at times, but I think point differential can make a blowout more interesting. So I think point differential is good, but I think you only should be using point differential in a close thing. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if they had used point differential, the Sixers would have been a top 3 seed. There were a couple of other teams that got screwed because of just injuries and stuff, and the way that the NBA has done stuff with the in-season tournament and the other stuff that they've been doing, which has been great. But there's just some things. But I think point differential, if you're going to take a rule and put it in the NBA, point differential is probably what you need to do. But all the other stuff that FIBA doesn't need to come. So, but yeah, good for the NBA. So moving right along, Team USA women's basketball destroys Nigeria. Sorry to our African sisters and brothers, 88-74. My reaction to this, I'm very happy that Cheryl Reeve, she must listen to this podcast, or somebody from Team USA must listen to this podcast, because Trey, didn't I say that they needed to put all due respect to the great Diana Taurasi, UConn's finest. Trey knows I'm a big Diana Taurasi fan, love her, but I said that sometimes it's better to put her on the bench, and that's exactly what she did. And she inserted Jackie Young, and Jackie Young got off for her second straight game. And lo and behold, the offense looked better. Chelsea Gray was in the point guard role the way she should be. They got a more natural 2-guard. The ball was moving. It took them a while to really assert dominance over Nigeria, because for those that don't know, you might have saw Amukamara. She is the sister of Prince Amukamara. And she was a walking bucket during this game. But, Asia Wilson to another 2011, the best women's basketball player on the planet. She's proven that. But I think, look, Jackie Young, the offense looks smoother. Defense looks smoother. Alyssa Thomas is a defensive, pariah, really, really good. She mucked up the game. I'm trying not to say goon because, we're tossing goon away. But that's what she did. She mucked the game up and she did what she was supposed to do. Alyssa Thomas is a star in her own right. But Jackie Young, man, I mean, that's all due respect to Diana Taurasi, but she shouldn't have been in the starting lineup. She needs to rest, and it's good to see that they got off. The second unit got off. Somebody listens to this podcast. Good job, y'all. That's a great move. Jackie Young being inserted into the starting lineup. I said it should have been Jackie Young or Sabrina Ionescu, so I'm glad somebody listens. But yeah, that's what can you say? They destroyed them, and now they get to face Australia on Friday. Trey?
Yeah, this team, we talked about it last week. We talked about, they got to figure out who their point guard is going to be. Chelsea Gray played, had 4 assists, didn't really do much offensively as far as scoring. But you're right, Jackie Young came in, stepped up, Nafisa Collier, and obviously Asia. But I think this team is. I think if we see one more game with this lineup that we saw against Nigeria, I think we're in a situation where you say, "All right, go ahead. This will be number 8 in a row." And that's really all I can say. You're muted.
So, your most important player, sorry, y'all, most important player for the women's team on the road to their 8th straight gold medal.
I think for them, I think it's kind of a toss up because they have a number of players that are crucial. I think Asia is going to always do Asia, so obviously she's crucial. I think Brianna is crucial, but I think actually it's going to be somebody off their bench. And it could be like somebody like a Brittany Griner. It could be like a Sabrina Ionescu. I think though, depending on who they're playing, and the size of the team they're playing, if they're playing a bigger team, that Brittany Griner is going to be crucial defensively, as far as rebounding, just being a presence on the floor in the paint. And then also, and you mentioned, and you'll probably agree with me, is that making sure that they have that starting lineup down pat, and that the chemistry is right from who's running the offense, and how that dynamic is going to work.
So I'm of the mindset that it's going to be, I agree with Trey 100%. I'm of the mindset that it's going to be Jackie Young and Alyssa Thomas and Kelsey Plum and Sabrina Ionescu. I think that Sabrina's offense is going to be needed eventually. Australia has some size on them, so this game on Friday might end up being the Brittany Griner game. But I just think that Jackie Young, Alyssa Thomas, and Sabrina are going to, and not more Sabrina, but Kelsey are going to be needed because those 3 are defensive specialists. Obviously, of those 4 players that I mentioned, Jackie Young and Sabrina are the walk-in buckets. That's no knock on Kelsey and Alyssa. They both can get their points. They both score like 15, 16 points a night, but they're just not walking buckets like the other 2. But I just think that the defensive prowess of those 3 players, Kelsey, of Alyssa, and of Jackie Young, we've seen her scoring prowess, and she kind of shut down Amukamara tonight. But I think that their defensive prowess is going to be needed because I think that against teams like Australia, if both USA teams wound up playing France in the gold medal game, I think that defense and size is going to be key. So I think that I think that you need to have, and that's the thing, and that's why I'm glad that Diana Taurasi got put. Not that I wanted that to happen, but got put on the bench because I think that she needs that the second unit just needs another playmaker and the defensive specialist. And I think Diana Taurasi can do that. Plus, again, she's a walking bucket when she's on. And I think that that's what the second unit needs. Trey said the points of the second unit. That's why I mentioned, besides Jackie Young, all second unit players, Kelsey Plum, Alyssa Thomas, and Sabrina. Because I think Sabrina, and that's the big worry if you're the opposing teams. Like Sabrina, it's basically just been Asia and Brianna Stewart and now Jackie Young in the scoring party. Chelsea Gray hasn't gotten off yet. Diana Taurasi hasn't had a Diana Taurasi game. Sabrina Ionescu hasn't had a Sabrina Ionescu game. And like I said, Kelsey Plum it's winning time. And we all know that that's when, if you're a W fan or just a basketball fan, that's when Kelsey Plum turns it up the most. So, I just think that those are the players that are going to be the most important. But like Trey said, defense and size are going to be key, and that starting lineup has to be right. And so that's why I mentioned a bunch of point guards. But I think that Jackie Young, if Jackie Young stays in the starting lineup, I don't think that there will be much to worry about. But that game against Australia is going to be key, and so we'll see how they come out. If they come out like they came out um, a few hours ago, then I'm not worried about it. But I think that, like Trey said, they got to get that starting five right, and they gotta insert Sabrina, Alyssa, and Kelsey more into the game. So moving right along, we talked about it last week, but I mean, there's some things just stay the same, man. Once again, Simone Biles, Suni Lee, Jordan Childs, and Jay Carey. I think all of them won an individual medal during the individual events over the last few days. So shout out to them. They dominated the Olympics. I'm gonna let Trey start this one. But they just dominated. If you didn't watch it, go watch the clips. Go watch it on Peacock, man. They dominated these last few days. Trey?
Yeah, they dominated. There's no other way to put it. I've seen some comments about Simone Biles, just stupid comments, to be truthful. As far as Simone Biles she has the luxury of, right, she's the GOAT, right? She's the best player in the game to use like a basketball or football term.
And just to be clear, he's in gymnastics. He's not saying she's the best. I mean, she might, for some of y'all, she might be the best overall athlete ever. And
right.
that's a conversation. Maybe that's a conversation next week. Who's the best all-around athlete right now? But just to save him from getting called out, he's talking about.
Yes, I'm talking about gymnastics.
If that wasn't clear.
And the comment essentially was, so Simone Biles will, when she does certain, I'm not really a gymnastics head, but she'll do certain like vaults or whatever the case may be, and it's not perfect, but she's not doing some normal vault or something like that. She's doing like, the competition is doing something here, or some of the other, they're doing a normal vault, and Simone is like trying some crazy twist or something like that, and maybe it's not quite perfect, but she still lands it. And that's why she continues to win. And that's why ultimately the rest of Team USA is winning, because they've dominated. They are winning medals. And as a result, you look at the gymnastics and you say, wow, all four of them are holding up a medal. It's simple as that. They are dominant as a crew, and they have the best gymnast in the world right now, and Simone Biles.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that Simone Biles doesn't get praised enough, but I just want to shout out the other gymnasts. Simone Biles, she did her thing. Obviously, she messed up on vault. She's human. Everybody, she messed up on the beam, and didn't medal in that. I think she was like 7th or 8th instead of first, second, or third. But Simone had a very perfect Olympics by her standard. Some subpar just because she got a silver medal instead of a gold. But Rebecca Andrade is her, and we'll get to her in a minute. But I have to shout out Simone Biles, Jordan Childs. Let me shout out Simone first, because she came back. She had the twisties, had some stuff, was isolated, and some stuff with her mental health didn't work out. But I keep saying psychologist. She has a therapist with her, and she has her family there. And lo and behold, she had one of her better Olympics. Like, got a medal and everything. Like I said, but vault. So 4 out of 5 ain't bad, man. And Simone is her. Like, I don't know if she'll be competing 4 years from now when she's 31, but never say never. She's the GOAT, and like we said last week, it might be her and Gabby competing in their 30s. So, but shout out to Simone. 4 out of 5 ain't bad. Suni, I just want to shout out Suni Lee and Jade Carey, because Suni Lee, obviously, we talked about it last week, debilitating kidney disease, comeback story, a baby of the Olympics, right? Came back from a debilitating kidney disease, got a silver medal and a bronze medal, a gold medal in team. And just, she was her. When they needed her to do something, she did it and did it flawlessly. So shout out to Suni Lee, comeback, probably the comeback player of this Olympics. Jade Carey, for those that don't know, she was dealing with like a flu. We don't know if it was stomach or the actual flu, but she came back, won a thing. I don't know where Trey just went, but I guess he'll be back. She came back, won a medal. Despite all that, couldn't keep food down, and like still, what happened, bro? Did you get the wrong button?
My browser just crashed randomly.
Oh, okay. So the technical difficulties, live show, y'all.
Google Chrome.
But like, yeah, Jade Carey, she was dealing with the flu or a stomach thing, couldn't really keep food down. Still won a silver. I think she won a bronze and a gold. Like, still won medals. Like, come back. And then Jordan Childs, right? Like, had that shock. The Romanian girl. I won't just call her Romanian girl, but the athlete from Romania thought she was getting the bronze, and Jordan Childs got the bronze and a surprising thing. So Jordan Childs, again, another one. Like, good. This might be the best from top. This might be a hot take for me, but the best from top to bottom, all around Olympics team that I think we'll see in our lifetime. And I know 2028 hasn't happened yet, and it might include Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas and 3 other people. But for my money right now, we have a lot of living to do. But I think this is the best all-around gymnastics team in as far as the women's field, and even in the men's field, because they also won medals that I think the United States has ever sent for an Olympics. I think this is just complete and utter domination on the women's side. Trey?
That's all I gotta say, man. I said my piece, and
Yeah, okay. So Rebecca Andrade, look, man, is she the new gymnastics star? I think she is. Simone basically anointed her. Said that that she never wants to feel what it's like. Essentially, I'm going to butcher the quote, to have Rebecca Andrade after her for an Olympic medal, made her have to work on the floor in the all around competition. But yeah, I think when Simone Biles says something like that, I think gymnastics is in great hands with Rebecca Andrade, a Black Brazilian, part 1/3 of an all black podium a day or two ago. So look, man, Rebecca Andrade is her. I think gymnastics is in good hands. Obviously, I think it's gonna be maybe a year or two, and I might be wrong because I don't know gymnastics top to bottom like I want to, but I think if Simone, this is it for Simone. This was a great Olympics. I think that it's going to be a while before we have a gymnast on the women or the men's side that's going to be the caliber of a Simone Biles, but it can happen. Obviously, gymnasts are rising up all over, especially the older ones in this country. So you never know. But I think Rebecca Andrade is the new star, and I don't know if she'll end up being the new GOAT, but she definitely looks like first off, she's going to be the next her, but she definitely looks like somebody who could take the sport to the next level after Simone calls it a career. Like, we might be witnessing that handoff, like with Gabby and Simone, from Simone to Rebecca Andrade, and that's where I'm at. I think she is her. I think she's the new superstar. I think outside of Simone, Suni, Jordan, and Jade, like, this was Rebecca's Olympics as well. Trey?
yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a gymnastics head, but from what I've seen, and what I know about Rebecca Andrade, and what we've heard from Simone as far as kind of passing the torch, it's looking like she's up next. Rebecca Andrade is the most decorated Brazilian and Latin American gymnast of all time. And I believe just overall, she's I believe in any discipline, she is also the most decorated Brazilian Olympian, like, period. So yeah, I mean, just if you're just looking at like medals and awards, yeah, like, she's got that. And she's competed well against, like we said, the best gymnast right now. So it only makes sense that she's, next in line. But with in all sports, you have a player who kind of will stand up above the rest and challenges for the throne of who's the best in basketball, who's the best in football. It doesn't always happen right away, right? You had, like, for example, with the NFL, with Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, it took a minute. Tom Brady at 42 still handed it to the younger quarterback. And as soon as Tom left, or I guess I would say on the tail end of Tom leaving, you saw Patrick Mahomes kind of take that next step, and he had already won a ring, but so yeah, I do think Rebecca Andrade is next up.
All right, so y'all know we couldn't get out of here without talking about Noah Lyles, man. Noah Lyles, a photo finish. Some people are really confused about track. For those of you that don't know, it is hip, not leg. I know some of y'all
torso.
I know some of y'all were confused about that because you saw the Jamaican's leg come across and you were like, oh, this is like horse racing. No, it's not like that. It's torso first. This is why they do the photo finish. But look, man, I gotta respect the man that backs up his word. He said basically this sport is mine, and he proved it, man. I gotta respect somebody who, he's from the DMV, somebody who's loud and backs up their talk, because if it was the other way around, we would be saying something else. So you got to give it to Noah Lyles. He completed half of the double of the double that he's doing. Like, he should be in the 200-meter finals 2 days from now. So on Saturday, and I think he will probably win that because that's his better event. Like, this was his weaker event, and you kind of saw it, right? Took a photo finish. But yeah, Noah Lyles is him. He deserves that sneaker. If you're, I think that's going to be the next sneaker bidding war. Usually it's these NBA athletes. I think he's going to be the first $200 million. He's going to be the first track. Again, forgive me because I'm not a track head. He's gonna have a sneaker deal and be probably the first. I don't even know if Usain Bolt had a signature sneaker, but I think what Noah Lyles wants, Noah Lyles should get. So if he wants a signature sneaker, if you're Nike, you're Adidas, you're Puma, you're who am I forgetting? You're Converse. Like, you better back up the Brinks truck down to the DMV to go give that man a signature sneaker, because this man is gold. Like, I don't know why I don't
literally
see him on
he
my
won
TV.
gold.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't see him on my TV more. Like, I know people haven't seen a track. Like, he's not a humble track star like Usain Bolt, but I kind of like my athletes loud, and can back up the talk. So I can't, and I'm a basketball fan saying that, and I know he offended a lot of basketball fans by saying world champ of what, but I mean, I think he's got a fundamental misunderstanding of, that the best NBA players right now are all international talents. So I think he's got a fundamental misunderstanding there. But, he's a world champ. He's a gold medalist, and he might get another gold medal in the 200 unless something crazy happens, right? So, and you never can say never because it was a photo finish in the 100 meters. So, but, I think he's going to do something that hasn't been done since Carl Lewis and go back-to-back, 100 meters, 200 meters. So, yeah, Noah Lyles is him. Back up the Brinks truck. I want to see him on my TV more, and I might want the Air Lyles. Trey?
Yeah, Noah is one of those guys. It's funny, I was talking to somebody yesterday about Noah Lyles, and I didn't think of this comparison, so excuse me for the very specific comparison, but a friend of ours named Kalen, somebody else made a comparison, and I said, wow, that is an interesting comparison. The reason why is because they are the type of player they're the type of person that will kind of say things, and you're like, what is this man talking about? But they say it with like the utmost confidence. So shout out to Kalen, because Kalen will say some things and you'll be like, what are you talking about, bro? But he'll say it with like the utmost confidence.
He will.
And
y'all don't know him, but Betray and I do.
And Noah Lyles is the same way, right? Like with the whole, you mentioned the whole comment about the NBA. But he said that with the utmost confidence, and he said with the utmost confidence about who he is as a runner and as an athlete. And like you said, whether it was a photo finish or not, it doesn't matter. If you win by 1 point in the NBA Finals, you win the NBA Finals and you're the best. You're considered the best team in the league. If you win, the Super Bowl by 1 point or a field goal, 3 points, you're the best. You're considered the best team in the league. And just because he finished by whatever it was,
a torso finish,
a torso finish, an eighth of a second, or whatever the minuscule difference in time was, he still won the 100-meter and it's looking like he's going to go to the 200-meter final and has a chance to do, like you said, something that hasn't been done in a very long time. So his running spoke for himself. So reality, he didn't have to really say anything, but he did, and he backed it up.
I mean, I'll just say it like this to close this one out. When you're in conversations, I mean, we don't know if he'll touch Jesse Owens because he's got to do this for a few more Olympics. But when you're in conversations with Carl Lewis, somebody who's still alive, you're doing something right. So moving right along, we asked this question last week. We'll definitely ask it again next week too. Athletes or teams of the Olympics so far, Trey? Because I think you started, or did I start? I think I started the last one, so it's you, right?
I think it's me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think athletes of the Olympics, the obvious ones are Simone Biles, Suni Lee, / gymnastics as a team. I would say also, we just talked about him, Noah Lyles. Who else? I'll throw this guy's hat. I think I said him last week as well. And forgive me, I'm blanking on his name, but the gentleman who did the pommel horse for.
Trey froze. So hopefully he will be back.
Can you hear me now?
Am I back? I got you now.
So if you missed what I was saying, also I'm blanking on his name. I believe it's Steven
Narduzzi. Steven.
Yeah. Who did the pommel horse? I think he kind of.
Speaking of Penn State, he's a Penn State alum. Go ahead. Froze again. It's a Penn State alum. Live show, y'all. So I don't know what's going on with Trey's stuff, but hopefully he will come back. So hopefully he'll come back. If not, I will finish that while he gets situated. So mine's are my athletes of my athlete and team of the thing. I'm gonna go with the rugby team. Anytime you win at the last minute, I think that deserves to be celebrated. I think that's the rugby team. He mentioned it. The gymnastics team as well. I think was a solid thing. Men and women. Those are my teams of the Olympics so far. My athlete has to be Cole Hocker. I don't know if y'all saw what happened in the 1500. Cole Hocker and Yared Nuguse coming out of nowhere just to win that. When they weren't really favorites at that time. I am of the mindset that is a good time. So that's where I'm at with it. Hopefully Trey will be back. We lost him. I think he's back. Yep, you're back.
Back? All right.
Yeah,
and we're back.
But as I was finishing what I said, I know you didn't hear it, but I said the women's rugby team, because for those of you that hadn't seen the way that they won that bronze medal, last minute, it's like, well, obviously neither one of us played rugby, or I don't think Trey has ever played rugby. I know I haven't. But I mean, it's like a kickoff in football, right? They kicked it off. The girl comes back. There's a touchdown. You just see the elation on their faces, man, for their first medal in a long time. So I got to go with the women's rugby team and the gymnastics team as a whole. Trey talked about the men's and women's team. Just utter domination, right? Like the men really weren't supposed to medal, and they won a bronze in the team event, and then Narduzzi won a bronze medal. Shout out to Penn State. We are. There are a couple of Penn State alums that will either listen to this podcast right now or later on this week that'll be like Penn State and finish it for me. But we are. And and then I just got a shout out as far as individuals. Trey, I think we saw, or I didn't see it live yesterday, but the best comeback ever. Cole Hocker, man, a dude who wasn't supposed to win the 1500 came back and beat both the British guy and I think the Norwegian guy who was supposed to they have like a personal rivalry going on where they were chirping at each other, and both Cole Hocker and Yared Nuguse still won. So the track team is still going. But I mean, the track team, we talked about Noah. We didn't even talk about Sha'Carri, man. Sha'Carri, Richardson finally getting the silver medal. Julian Alfred, winning St. Lucia's first medal ever. She'll probably end up in my shout out series, so I won't say too much about her, but shouts out to Sha'Carri overcoming all of that. We talked about overcoming adversity, overcoming a weed test, and look where she is. And Amani, I'll leave this one to the shout out series. So y'all wait, but y'all know how I'm talking about. Amani, that's a shout out for later. But go ahead, Trey. You were saying about Narduzzi.
No, I was just saying that he's kind of endeared himself. People have kind of, I saw a couple articles saying that he's the Clark Kent of the Olympics. So I think he just kind of stands out. Not necessarily, he did well in the pommel horse, but he stands out in a different way than maybe some of the other athletes that we've mentioned. Because I guess USA has kind of welcomed him as their golden child, I guess.
An official mascot of the Olympics. Have been Snoop Dogg. But yeah, so there's something else that we missed last week. Jared Allen's contract extension. I don't really have much to say on this. I'm glad for him. He deserves his money, especially after they basically threw him away in Brooklyn. And then he found his stride in Cleveland. I don't know if he's a defensive anchor of a championship team. Y'all know I'm not really, on the Cleveland Cavaliers championship bandwagon, but I think with him. Obviously, they've got Donovan Mitchell. If they can, Darius Garland, they've already re-signed Evan Mobley, so they've got their core. And as long as if Jared Allen and Evan Mobley take another leap along with Darius Garland, then yeah, the Cavs can be a surprise. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I think Darius Garland will take a leap. I think Jared Allen needs to develop a mid-range shot. And I think Evan Mobley needs to get more consistent at three. But if either one of those things happens next season in a couple of months, then yeah, the Cavaliers could be a top 4, top 5 seed in the East. But Jared Allen, congrats to you, man. You deserve your money, especially after the way Brooklyn treated you and just threw you away in that trade. And look at you now, one of the best big men in the NBA. Trey?
Yeah, I agree with you. He is one of the better bigs right now, and still relatively young. I think you're right. Cleveland has something to prove this year with Darius Garland potentially maybe taking a big step. Evan Mobley showed that he has some very high upside and can be a really, really good player in this league for a while. But you're correct in saying that he needs to get more consistent at the three. I do believe that Jared Allen can be a premier paint protector though in the league. Does that mean that the Cavs are gonna, go all the way and go to the make it to the finals or go super far in the playoffs? I don't necessarily believe that, but I think he at least in the near future is going to be a key part of that team being successful because of the presence that he does have. In particular, defensively.
Okay, all right. I can agree to that. All right, so now we get to our funner segments. Y'all know these last couple of things before we get to shout outs and he's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. We do some fun stuff because at this point, if you've lasted this long at this podcast, you're a real fan. So thank you all. But But yeah, so who are the NBA players who will be under the most pressure when the season starts? So to tease this out, I wrote an article. I was up this morning on the 4 Eastern Conference players under the most pressure. Last word on sports.com. Check that out. And then I will have another one up in the next couple of days about the 4 or however many Western Conference players under the most pressure when season's less than 2 months away, which is crazy to say. But yeah, I'm of the mindset that the players under the most pressure. Let me just start because we mentioned them earlier. Joel Embiid, obviously, with the Sixers just had, as Trey knows, the best off season in the Joel Embiid era. So now it's up to him to really, obviously, some of this is up to him. So I in this case, I won't even mention health because that's a given. It's up to him to anchor a really good team, and he's shown that he can do that. And this is why I think playing in the Olympics is good for him. He's got to learn how to sacrifice, learn how to maybe not do what Trey wants him to do, which is not score 40 or 50 a night, or 34 a night, but go down to like 25, 28. Put your assists. His assists got up to like 5 or 6 a night. Get that drawn up to 8. And I agree. I think we both agree here. I love the fact that he made a playmaking leap last year. Got his assists up to 5 or 6 a night. I think he could get it up even more to 8 or 9 a night. And with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey, like there's no way. I mean, you said the same thing when I said 5 or 6 last year, and he got it up there. So you shaking your head. You said the same thing when I said all he needs to do is get it to 5 or 6. All right, 7 or 8. All right, how about that? 7 or 8. It's at 5 right now. It's like 5, 6 right now. So
it ain't going no higher than that. He's a center. He's not a facilitator.
7.
He's getting those points because of double teams and stuff. He ain't going average no 8 or 9.
Look, 7 or 8. Look, I think he can average 9 a night. And I think that with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey and Caleb at the thing, I think in Kelly Oubre, I think he can get to 7 or 8 assists. But I think if his scoring goes down to maybe 29.9 or 30 a night, probably won't. I think he could win the scoring title, but I know Trey and I agree on this. I think like I would like to see him score like 33 or 32 a night, up those assists to 6 or 7, or like I think 9 a night. I know Trey thinks it's not going to happen, but at least 6 or 7. And I think that the Sixers will be in good shape. So I think he's under pressure. Jason Tatum's under a lot of pressure. I know some people might not agree with me, but I think he's under pressure now to justify the $400 million contract he has now. And obviously he's going to be under a lot of pressure without Kristaps Porzingis. It'll fall to him and Jaylen Brown to be the offensive anchors of the Celtics. So I think Jason Tatum is there as well. Jimmy Butler, just because I think Jimmy Butler has to justify like all the pressure and he put on the Heat to like get a player, and they weren't able to do that. And now it's basically like the equivalent of a prove-it deal in the NFL. Like he's got 1 year before the Heat will lose him for nothing. I think if I'm the Heat, I would just trade him now, because instead of just letting him walk and just having everything fall on Bam and Tyler Hero, I think you should trade him now, get some assets, get a first-round pick, so that way you're not totally bare once he leaves. So I think Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell, obviously new contract now. Now he definitely has to anchor a really good and up-and-coming Cleveland team. I think he's under pressure. Just to mention a person who I didn't mention, Klay Thompson. I think he's under pressure as well now as the centerpiece. Not really the centerpiece, but as the third piece in Dallas, I think he's under pressure. Klay Thompson's under pressure. I think Nikola Jokic is under pressure because Jamal Murray and Michael Porter. I mean, Jamal Murray may have another leap in him, but I think Michael Porter is what he is at this point, so it falls to Nikola Jokic to go to the next level. And I don't know what the next level is for him, but he's got to find another gear and go there to really get the Nuggets over the hump. I think a lot of pressure's on Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns as well. I think that duo is under pressure. And obviously, I think Luka and Kyrie are under pressure now, too. You got to the championship. Some people think it was a fluke, so now you got to prove that you guys are good enough. So those are my 8 players that I think are under pressure. Trey.
Yeah, I think Jason Tatum, because we talked about teams that were under a lot of pressure when the season starts, and the Celtics will be under a lot of pressure, and a lot of that pressure is going to fall directly on Jason Tatum, because he's and I think this is arguable, but most would say he's the best player on that team, despite the fact that if you were to look at the stats, numbers never lie, but they don't always tell us, the whole story. But you look at the box score from the playoffs, Jaylen Brown, from the finals rather, Jaylen Brown actually technically had I would say, a better series overall.
Yeah, he was the better player in the playoffs. There's an argument there that Jason Tatum is more of a regular season player than a playoff performer.
So there's pressure there to, at the very least get back to the finals, but also prove. I think this is personal pressure on himself, but also outward pressure from a lot of fans and the media, to prove himself as the premier player on that team. I think the Timberwolves I would say there's pressure on Ant, but I think Ant actually has a lot less pressure than Cat, because he's the younger player. I think Ant can actually play a little bit free. Like there's pressure to be, to get better, to be able to be a little bit more of a facilitator and also be able to move without the ball a little bit better, when it comes to like positioning on the court. But Cat is the older player, the more veteran player, and so I think there's a lot of pressure on him actually, because as we both know, there's a very small window to win an NBA championship, and when you have that window open, you got to seize it and take advantage of it. And this Timberwolves roster is obviously their window is now. They've got a good roster, but they've got some players whose contracts are coming up, and there's questions around if something doesn't happen this season, what will happen in the following. And then I'll say also, I think the Suns as well. Like I think there's if I'm looking at the Suns and I'm saying make this roster work. Like I'm looking at the players, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant. They have to make that dynamic work. I think they can. The question is, will they? Right, and that's why I say they have a lot of pressure, because you can't have two of the best shooting guards in the league and a top 2 or 3 small forward in the league and be the 8th seed and get knocked out in the first round. It just is unacceptable. So I'm sure there's a lot of personal pressure, individually, on themselves. But again, I think there's media pressure and fan pressure on them to have a drastic improvement over their performance in the regular season and in the playoffs from last year.
Okay. All right. I agree with that as well. So now we go NFL players or teams under the most pressure when the season starts next month. Trey?
I think there's a number of teams. I would say I think the Bills are up there when it comes to teams. Despite the fact that the Bills, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, haven't really done much to really do. In fact, they've done very, very little at all to like actually sustain what they have and build more around Josh Allen, who's arguably top 5 quarterback in the league. I believe that there's a lot of pressure, in particular on Russell Wilson, to do something with the Steelers this year, especially like if we talked about earlier, if they're able to get a guy like Brandon Ayuk offensively, because he's kind of, faltered the last 2 seasons. I think there's a lot of pressure on the Jets to do something now that Aaron Rodgers is back healthy. The Eagles, obviously, there's a lot of pressure there, in particular on Jalen Hurts And I think also on that defense, to kind of get things right. They have a lot of talent on that defense that we brought in across the course of the offseason. And then I think another team that has a lot of pressure, but we haven't talked about them in a while, is actually the Lions. We saw what happened in the playoffs. We saw what happened towards the end of the regular season in that Cowboys game. I think they have a tremendous amount of pressure because talking about windows to win a championship or to do something big in the playoffs, it's this big, right? The Lions have been historically, in the last 20 to 30 years, have been historically abysmal team. Had one of the worst seasons ever in NFL history, and what was that, 08, and went 0-16, and now have finally kind of come back into prominence after, being in the early days of the NFL being one of the premier teams. So I think they have a tremendous amount of pressure just because of how tiny their window is to try to win something.
I agree with that. I think Josh Allen has a lot of pressure on him because, like I said earlier, and like you just said, like they're not really helping him. They haven't tried to help him. Um, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with the Bills front office, but they need to figure that one out. I think Lamar Jackson, as much as it pains me to say it, has a lot of pressure on him to win in the playoffs, get the Ravens back to a Super Bowl, especially now that they've added even more weapons for him, another year, and different things there. So I think Lamar, uh, um, Lamar and Josh have a lot of pressure on them. I think you said it. I agree with you, Russell Wilson, as well. On the NFC side, I definitely think that there is a lot of pressure now on Brock Purdy. Especially if there's no Brandon Ayuk. Now it's all on George Kittle, McCaffrey. Maybe there's an unknown wide receiver that comes out of nowhere. But now it's really all on Brock Purdy to figure it out, like to keep Debo, keep George Kittle happy, keep Christian McCaffrey happy by feeding them. Now it's really pressure starting to mount because now without Brandon Ayuk, it's like now they're trying to save money because they know they got to pay Brock Purdy in a few years. It's just the pressure is just going to keep mounting on Brock Purdy. I think he's under a lot of pressure. I think the Lions are under extreme amount of pressure as well. I think Jordan Love's under pressure now that he has his new deal, and the Packers outside of the Lions. The Packers is really wide open for them to at least get like a wild card spot again, or maybe they really do challenge in the NFC North. Maybe the Lions fall off. We already mentioned the Eagles. Don't mention no reason to go there. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it for me. I think Tua Tagovailoa is under pressure as well, for obvious reasons. But I think those are my top players that are under pressure, specifically Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. They have to perform. And unfortunately for them, they have the guy quarterback in the same conference as them, but they got to at least make it look good. Oh, and Joe Burrow too. Joe Burrow's under pressure too. Who's gonna rise up? Who's gonna rise up in that division? Who's gonna take out? Who's gonna take out Patrick Mahomes? Um, so yeah. So now we move on to our shout out segment. Um, I can start here. I want to shout out Imani Khalif. Um, you know, Despite it all, he's going to be fighting for a gold medal, I believe, on Friday. But even if it's a silver medal and she loses, like the fact that she persevered through all this slander she was getting about being a man, even though she's a natural born woman, and all the other stuff she was getting. Shout out to Imani Khalif for persevering and actually getting to a gold medal match, getting further than any of her haters could ever get in their lives. So shouts out to her for that. Shouts out to I'm wearing the Syracuse S, so shouts out to Fred Crittenden. Crittenden was injured, had like a leg thing, but still qualified in the 200 and the 400-meter race. So he'll be in that finals. I think it's three Americans once again in that final. So good for him. And I believe I think that's it for me. What about you in the shout outs?
I'm actually going to give a shout out to. So earlier we talked about a particular NBA analyst saying that a particular NBA player was overweight. So I'm going to give a shout out to Lamar Jackson, who recently, I guess it was in training camp, was talking about. I'll quote him exactly because I have the article up, but he says, "I was fat. To me, I felt like I was fat. I just saw a video from 2 years ago against the Browns, and I looked out of shape, but I was in shape." So in essence, what he was saying was, I feel like I need to get slimmer. So shout out to him for, being able to. I think what that tells me is he saw an area of improvement in himself, and decided to take that upon himself and do something about it, which shows to me a sign of leadership. So shout out to him. And then also shout out to we haven't talked about this at all, I don't think, really, but shout out to the women's 3v3 team for making it to the semifinal. Unfortunately, they lost to Spain, but shout out to them. And I'm not one to really give participation trophies, but shout out to the men. They honestly really did not have they really didn't have much of a team. I'm not saying that those players aren't good, but if you look at that roster, there was really one guy who ever did much in the NBA, and that was Jimmer Fredette, and he didn't have any success in the NBA. Went to China and became a god, and then got injured and wasn't able to play as much in their final game. But shout out to them for at least doing what they could with what they had. So I think those are my 3 shouts out.
Okay, cool. And now we get to everybody's favorite segment. He's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. Um, so Trey, you got something? Or you want me to start?
You go ahead and start.
Okay. So my they aren't them. Unfortunately, I have to do this. My Philadelphia Eagles, man. You had the ball. The football was right there. All you had to do was kick it, and you pulled it away from us, man. You still have what's his name? Still calling commentary, man. Like, why is Howard Eskin still doing sideline reporting when we know what he did to the Phillies? And y'all today announced that he's still doing sideline for the radio call of Eagles games this upcoming season. Like, why are you doing this? You still have now the first preseason game is Friday, so you still have time to undo this mistake, guys. Like, I know y'all waiting for other women to come out, but Eskin needs to learn a lesson, and it is really what hurt him to not do Eagles games. That's his whole thing about being an Eagles insider. Now, I know this day aren't them is really, really Philly right now. So for those of you that don't understand what I'm saying, in Philadelphia, Howard Eskin is one of a really big time local reporter. You might have heard him brought up a couple of weeks ago on this podcast because the Phillies banned him from their stadium for inappropriately kissing one of their female employees. The Sixers banned them. So a lot of people inside in the city are waiting to see what the Flyers and the Eagles are doing, and the Eagles are basically saying, they're waiting for more women to come out. But I just think it's enough that the Phillies banned them, and they were able to investigate this and confirm it. So I don't know why he still has that gig, and we know there's more people who can do that are less controversial. So my Eagles, unfortunately, they aren't them. They have to do something. That's my they aren't them. My he's not him, unfortunately, again, has to be Charles Barkley. I just think that you should be better at this by now, and I think you should be more sensitive to this being called the round pound. You should be more sensitive to calling players that are taller and bigger than you fat. And I think that sometimes his brashness, his honesty gets him in trouble. And I think that he should just, like, if it ain't constructive, he should stop commenting on Joel Embiid. I think that you can make your Sixers basketball analysis without getting back on the narrative that I know I'm getting tired of addressing, whether he's fat or not. because there are just things we don't know about his dieting. We know that he's hired a personal chef now. We know that he's not having Chick-fil-A burgers all the time anymore. But I just think that we need to stop this. And I think that former players should stop commenting on things they don't know and just comment on what we do know. The health of Joel Embiid, none of us know that. Besides God, the Sixers, and Joel Embiid, nobody knows that. So I think that should stop being commented on. And my other Joel Embiid related thing is my they aren't dumb to the French fans. Like Anthony Edwards said, like, what more do you want? Did you want 3 players that are 7 feet? Like, there was really no room for him with Wemby there and with Rudy Gobert, and all of it would have been on him. And y'all still booing him because he spurned y'all. And y'all need to stop. I mean, it's great for people like me who love seeing Joel Embiid in his element, getting booed and giving y'all the suck it chant and everything else. So I love to see it. I really hope that France makes it to the gold medal game, just because I would love to see Joel Embiid and Victor Wembanyama Part 3. So my day aren't them to the French fans because they need to do better, and just my day aren't them in general. I just realized another one. Like, I don't know what is going on with these other international Olympics committees. Like, the Jamaican women couldn't run in track because of other things that were going on in France with a rule change. Some of the African athletes couldn't run. Like, what is going on with your IOCs and in France? Like, it's getting to the point where there's a conspiracy theory where I'm like, what's going on with these track runners? Like, are they injured? Is something going on with France? Like, what is going on with these? Why I'm tired of all these, because track is really prominent right now. All these pullouts because of different things that are happening either with the other international Olympics committees, other countries, Olympic committees, and or what's going on in France with these people not letting these track runners warm up. We know that's what happened to Sha'Carri Richardson. We don't know if she would have beat Julian Alfred anyway, but it probably would have helped if she was warmed up. But she got a silver medal. But yeah, my day aren't them to the International Olympic Committees in these other countries. Do better. I want to see the best athletes competing in their specialties, especially in track. And the fact that we got Jamaicans missing races, Africans missing races, really belittles what's going on in track. Now, it may not have mattered anyway because no one allows Gabby Thomas and Sydney McLaughlin Lavroni probably would have won anyway. But we don't know because there's some doubt now because these athletes that are really good at these events, these world champions, can't race because of different screw jobs that are happening in different parts of these Olympics. So do better, y'all. Trey?
Yeah, I had one that I was thinking about, and I'm actually going to do 2 that are actually very recent, because I was just kind of scrolling through ESPN as I was listening to you talk. And the first one is actually DK Metcalf. So this actually, I'm looking at the article. The article has a timestamp of 8:34 p.m. It is currently Eastern Standard Time, 9:10. So apparently at Seattle Seahawks practice today, at least 5 fights broke out, including one with DK Metcalf and cornerback Trey Brown, where apparently a helmet was thrown. So come on, DK Metcalf. Like, you're one of the veterans on that team. You've been there for a very, very long in Seattle. You're probably the best receiver on that team. Like, do better, man. Like, he's not him for that moment. Like, you as a guy, as a veteran on a team, you can't be the guy who's having fights and throwing helmets in practice. That's just unacceptable. And then the other one is, I was actually shocked at this. I didn't know his coach was American coach, but Canadian sprinter Andre DeGrasse, his coach is actually an American coach. I think is it Raina Reader? I'm not sure how to pronounce their name, but has been actually removed from the Olympics as a result of some allegations regarding sexual misconduct at the Olympics. So it's just a situation where it's kind of like, what are you doing? Like, for those who don't know, there have been some tactics by the Olympics to try to prevent as much, we'll just say, relations from occurring at the Olympics, in regards to cardboard beds, essentially with mattress toppers on them. But apparently people are still messing around and being inappropriate, according to the Olympics committee. So that's just another moment where it's like, come on, do better. So those are my two. He's not him, and she, I believe. Let me double check this because I don't want to misquote. But two, he's not him. Rainer Reeder, Andre DeGrasse's track coach, and then DK Metcalf for being involved in a fight in training camp as a veteran on the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I forgot one. Michaela Skinner. For those that didn't see earlier today, she put out a video where she was asking Simone to essentially call off the dogs, because she's been getting some threats. And if you are threatening Michaela Skinner, you shouldn't be threatening Michaela Skinner. I think, what happened with the Olympics team, with all of them winning medals individually and as a team, that's why Simone Biles last week, we said, freaked around and find out, she's in the find out phase of freaking around. But y'all shouldn't be posting threats on her Instagrams and social medias. But my she's not her to her, because I just don't ever like when especially white people, specifically white women, start crying on social media about you getting the consequences of your reactions. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that anybody should be threatening her or her family or her child, but she can suffer the consequences of her actions without y'all threatening her. So my she's not her to her as well, and my another they aren't them to y'all, to whoever is out here threatening her. Like, y'all don't have to do that. Like, she already feels bad based on Simone calling her out without saying her name. So y'all don't have to do that. And she's just making herself look worse by putting the tears on and trying to act like she's not a victim. She needs to take accountability, as Trey and I talked about off air. But y'all don't need to threaten her. So my she's not her. Additionally to Michaela Skinner. So yeah, y'all. So that's our show. Thanks for hanging out in there for dang near 3 hours. We got into a lot of stuff here. But yeah, I want to thank Trey for coming in. Morgan should be back next week after she's done, with the Olympics on Sunday. Maybe we'll get Trey again. We should be back either Friday or Saturday. I will let you guys know. But yeah, Trey, tell the people where they can find you at. While I throw up your socials, go ahead and tell them.
Again, Instagram is Mr. Taylor the third. I don't really use Twitter, but if you'd like, feel free to go ahead and follow me on there. It is my first and last name backwards. And then my YouTube channel, Mr. Taylor Movies. Go ahead and check those short films out on there. Keep in mind, one in particular is a little violent. So if you're not a fan of a thriller movie, keep that in mind. The other is just a drama about grief. But go check those out on my YouTube channel, Mr. Taylor Movies.
All right. Yeah. And y'all know where to find me at Colin W. Watson on Twitter, lastwordonsports.com, Philadelphia Tribune as well, phillytrib.com, and watsonsportstakes.com. Morgan is at M_India _Miller. Should be doing some sidelines and different things, not for NBC, I think, but as the college football season gets started. But yeah, y'all, thank you so much for checking us out. We hope that you stayed. And as Trey said, whether you're watching this tonight, Wednesday night, or later on in the week, don't forget to share. Friends don't let friends miss out on great podcasts. So share, subscribe. Definitely check out Morgan's stuff on Instagram and everything else. Thank you all. Thanks, Trey, for coming through. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of these Olympics as it gets down to the nitty-gritty. And we'll see you guys next week. Deuces.
Peace.